After eating dinner and visiting his grounded little sister, Wang Chong returned back to his room to rest. Suddenly, the door opened. Shanhai and Menglong rushed in from outside. "What's wrong?" Wang Chong frowned and lifted his head. "Gongzi, someone is looking for you." Two abrupt visitors had visited the Wang clan's residence, and they had specifically pointed out that they would like to meet Wang Chong. It just happened that Shanhai and Menglong were punished by Madame Wang to stand sentry by the entrance. As such, no one knew of this matter except for the two. Initially, Menglong and Shanhai intended to report this matter to Madame. However, Madame had too many worries within this short period of time, and if she were to know that young master had caused trouble outside once more, she would definitely fly into another rage. As such, the two decided to hide the matter from her. "Third young master, I think it would be best for you to meet them outside. Otherwise, if Madame were to find out, you will probably be punished." The two bowed respectfully. Wang Chong chuckled. Shanhai and Menglong probably didn't notice the changes in their attitudes toward him. They would never have said such words before. Looks like King Song's intentional high evaluation of him had worked its wonders. At the very least, the two no longer saw him as a profligate scion as they did before. Walking out of the residence, Wang Chong saw the two uninvited guests. To tell the truth, Wang Chong was also curious where these two came from and why they would come looking for him. "You are Wang Chong?" Before Wang Chong could even say anything, the two people outside had already started to question him. Actually, from the moment Wang Chong walked out of the residence, the two were already evaluating him from afar. These two were curious to know what kind of person Wang Chong was for him to hinder their plans. Less than a handful of people knew about the matter regarding the Hyderabad ore, and it was beyond the means of an average person to purchase these ores with at such an exorbitant price before them. These two were interested to know who their competitor was. Just that, they didn't expect for Wang Chong to be so young. Just like the two Cindy monks said, the other party was really just a kid. It was truly hard to believe that a matter highly valued by the Zhang clan and its clan head could be foiled by a little child. "Who are you two?" Similarly, Wang Chong was also trying to discern their identity. Wang Chong did not remember meeting him beforehand, but he could identify the deep scent of metal, sulfur, and charcoal from them, even from afar. Those who carried such scent with them must be people who had been put under unique working conditions for long hours. Wang Chong had a rough idea of the background of the two, but he needed confirmation. "I am Zhang Jian. I am Zhang Tsong. Wang Gongzi may not know who we are, but we are from the capital's Zhang clan," the two said. The capital's Zhang clan mainly managed smitheries, mines, the sales of weapons and armors. Even though they were famous in the smithing industry, the two did not think that a 14 to 15-year-old child would know of them. "As I expected, it's them." Wang Chong looked calm and indifferent on the surface, but his heart was already beating anxiously. He didn't think that the capital's Zhang clan would come looking for him so soon. In his previous life, the little bit of Wuxia steel weapon made from the material the Cindy monks left in the Central Plains were made by the capital's Zhang clan. If he hadn't appeared, the Zhang clan should have been the one to negotiate with the Cindy monks and buy the Hyderabad ores off them. In the smithing industry, the Zhang clan was a celebrity. They held a prominent standing in the industry, and if not for them, there probably wouldn't be any Wuxia steel in the Great Tang at all. However, it was a pity that even though they were able to tell that the Hyderabad ore was not any normal metal ore, they were unable to realize the true worth of it. They only bought a small sample portion of the Hyderabad ore from the Cindy monks. Furthermore, due to their inappropriate refining and crafting methods, they were unable to bring out the true value of the metal. It was truly regrettable. "May I know the reason behind your visit?" Wang Chong smiled. "You see, I've heard that Gongzi had bought a little bit of or from two Cindy monks." The two chose their words carefully and spoke extremely politely. Their clan head had emphasized that the matter regarding the Hyderabad ore must not be leaked outward. At present, the two did not know whether Wang Chong truly understood the worth of the ore or he was just fooling around. All in all, before they understood Wang Chong's situation, they didn't want to reveal too much on the matter. "Hee, as I expected." Upon hearing those words, Wang Chong smiled on the inside. The two were indeed here for the Hyderabad ore. Furthermore, it was likely that they knew about him after a feudal meeting with the two Sindhi monks. Indeed, I bought a little bit of the ore. Why, are you too interested in the ore as well? Wang Chong flung his sleeves, placed his hands behind his back, and said with a carefree expression, "Bought a bit?" He bought all of it. Not just that, he even bought the rights to monopolize the sales of the Hyderabad ore in the Central Plains. If the two hadn't failed to buy any of the Hyderabad ore from the two Sindhi monks, they had no reason to be here. Our Zhang clan is indeed interested in the mine as well. However, I have heard that Gongzi had bought all of it. Your father is a prominent official of the Great Tang, and even more so, Duke Zhou had always been a figure of respect for me. However, I have never heard that your clan is involved in the smithing industry. I am here to ask if Gongzi could sell them to our Zhang clan. Of course, we won't let Gongzi make a loss. After which, we will compensate you a suitable amount of gold, so as to display our sincerity in this matter. The two of them bowed respectfully as they said so. The two felt that their words were logical and filled with sincerity. Duke Zhou's heritage was not that of a blacksmith. Wang Yan and his family had nothing to do with blacksmiths either. It was a waste of precious commodity to leave these Hyderabad ores in the hands of the Wang clan. Only in the hands of the Zhang clan was it able to showcase its full potential. Of course, the Zhang clan didn't expect to obtain it for free. They would also compensate the Wang clan with a suitable amount of money. Thus, this trade was profitable for both the Zhang clan and the Wang clan. In their view, even though Wang Chong had monopolized the Hyderabad ores, he was still a child. Furthermore, given the Wang clan's reputation in the capital, it was likely that he was unlikely to afford the price of these ores. The reason why the Wang family's Gongzi made such a promise was probably mainly due to his obstinacy as a child. Upon hearing their words, Wang Chong knew that they thought that he was merely a child who couldn't recognize the value of those ores. May I know how much taels are you willing to compensate me? 1,000 taels. Of gold. The two of them replied earnestly. They specially emphasized on the words of gold. As long as Gongzi is willing to sell the contract between you and the two Sindhi monks to us, we can send that 1,000 gold taels over to your residence immediately. 1,000 gold taels. This was the price the two of them came up with after discussing the matter on the road and asking their clan head's opinion on the matter. In their view, Wang Chong had simply negotiated and taken on a deal that was unlikely to fall into his hands, and 1,000 gold taels was a huge profit for him. They had done their investigation, and a general family like the Wang family probably only earned 1,000 gold taels in an entire year. The reason why they gave such a gigantic sum of money was in consideration for the prestige of Duke Zhou. In a way, this was a form of respect for him. If this is the sum you all came up with, I would have to ask you two to return. I won't be selling the contract to the Hyderabad mine. It won't be too late to negotiate another form of partnership after you two have awakened and thought through matter through. Wang Chong scoffed and waved his hands. Wang Chong was prepared to earn hundreds of thousands from the Hyderabad ores. What did 1,000 gold taels count as in comparison to that? He could probably earn more than 10,000 gold taels selling a single wood steel weapon. These two were probably treating him as a child who had no worldly experience. 1,000 gold taels? He would be mad if he agreed to the deal. Why? The two of them widened their eyes in shock. They truly thought that the price they had come up with was fair. Based on their understanding, the Wang clan was an incorruptible clan, and a young master like Wang Chong probably only had a maximum of 10 silver taels of allowance every month. Only a fool would turn away a free 1,000 gold taels. Pardon me for being frank, but Gongzi, 1,000 gold taels isn't a small sum. If Gongzi Hope for us offer you a higher price, I'm afraid that we are unable to do so. Their complexion darkened. 1,000 gold taels was the maximum sum they could offer Wang Chong after their discussion with their clan head. They didn't expect that Wang Chong would find it insufficient. This was something they didn't think of, and they couldn't agree to increase the price either. Even though the capital's Zhang clan was a reputable, distinguished family, it hadn't reached the point where they could squander their wealth as they please. Furthermore, if we're not wrong, you haven't really gained possession of the sales of the Hyderabad ores, right? If you can't earn 90,000 gold taels in a month, not only will you be unable to gain possession of the Hyderabad mine, you will even have to pay a huge sum. On this aspect, we aren't wrong, right? The duo said frankly. Coming up with 90,000 gold taels in a month was nearly an impossible task. Even for a prominent and wealthy family like the Zhang clan, it was a highly difficult task, needless to say, an incorruptible family like the Wang clan who only lived off their stipends. They had never believed that Wang Chong would be able to accomplish the task. That was also a reason why they came here to negotiate with Wang Chong. In fact, after taking over Wang Chong's contract, they intend to renegotiate the deal with the two Cindy monks. They would request to either reduce the amount of taels they needed to pay or lengthen the deadline. In any case, an expense of 90,000 gold taels in a single month was unbearable, even for large and wealthy clans. It seems like your clan is extremely interested in this mine. However, I would like to ask you, if I were to sell this contract to your Zhang clan, given your capabilities, how much profit can you earn with a June of ores? Standing on the stairs, Wang Chong's robe rustled from the wind. Confidently, he asked the two. This? The two of them were slightly taken aback. They didn't think that Wang Chong would ask such a question. This? Given the reputation of our Zhang clan in the capital, all weapons, even if it's just a sickle, can be sold for multiple folds of its original price as long as it has our name of it. After the Hyderabad ore has been refined and forged by our blacksmiths into weapons, a June should be able to generate 300 gold taels of profit. Zhang Jian and Zhang Tsong said confidently. Actually, the two had wanted to say 600 gold taels. The upper echelons of the Zhang clan had already looked into the matter and verified that the Hyderabad ore was a top-quality metal or that didn't require much refining before it could be used for forging. A weapon forged with such high quality or using the Zhang clan's forging method with the Zhang clan's insignia on it, it would definitely be able to sell for a high price. An average steel blade could be sold for around a few dozen silver taels. On the other hand, the prices of famous treasure blades of the distinguished families could reach up to a dozen or even several dozens of gold taels. This was a price which even rich merchants found it hard to bear. However, the capital's Zhang clan was different. They had the confidence to sell a sword made of the Hyderabad ore for 600 to 700 gold taels. If the quality turned out to be superb, the price might even reach 1,000 gold taels. Only the capital's Zhang clan was capable of crafting a sword that could be sold for 1,000 gold taels. This was also why the two were confident. In this deal, the Zhang clan should be able to make a profit of 30,000 to 50,000 gold taels. More importantly, if they were to create a bunch of top-tier weapons, the reputation of the Zhang clan would be bolstered. This was also the reason why, despite being respected elders of the Zhang clan, they worked so diligently so as to make sure that this deal goes through. Then do you know how much this Hyderabad ore is being sold for? Wang Chong chuckled. These two fellows weren't being truthful. They had opened their mouth to speak, only to close it again. For a moment they froze. They had only known that the Hyderabad ore had been bought out by Wang Chong. Other than that, they didn't really ask much about the details. After all, the other party had nothing to sell to them, so why would they ask about its price? Wang Chong's words had stumped them. The quality of the ore is top-notch and doesn't require too much searing and beating to prepare it. So, it is likely that the price would be much more expensive than usual. Furthermore, the two Cindy monks had shipped the ores here from their homeland. That would make the price even more expensive. Even so, at most, it should be only worth 100 gold taels. The two of them said calmly. A blade of superior quality from a renowned blacksmith was worth around 100 gold taels. In the Central Plains, an average family of 6 didn't spend that much money in an entire year. The Hyderabad ores were of superior quality, and the duo had given the ore quite a high evaluation. In Zhang Jian and Zhang Tsong's opinion, no matter how expensive the Hyderabad ores were, it shouldn't exceed this price. Hearing those words, Wang Chong laughed. Clearly, even though the Zhang clan had known that the Hyderabad ores were extraordinary, they were unable to comprehend its full value. At this point, Wang Chong finally understood why, even though the capital's Zhang clan had approached the two Cindy monks, only a small bit of wood steel was left in the Central Plains. One must know that the Hyderabad ore had just come into existence then. It was a hard-to-come-by opportunity, and the Zhang clan had passed the opportunity by. I won't hide the fact from you too. Wang Chong lifted up his hands and pointed out 3 fingers. The price that the 2 Cindy monks had come up with was 3 times more than your conjecture. The price of a June of Hyderabad ore is 300 gold taels. The 2 of them widened their eyes in shock. They were truly astonished. Neither of them had even imagined the possibility of the Hyderabad ore being so expensive. This was way beyond the price of all ores in the Central Plains. I'll just tell you frankly, I have absolutely no intentions of selling the contract of the Hyderabad ores to you. The 1,000 gold taels that you had offered me means nothing to me. As long as I sell a single weapon made of Hyderabad ore, I will be able to easily earn 10,000 gold taels. After selling a few weapons, I will be able to raise 90,000 gold taels with ease. Wang Chong stared down at them from the stairs with a smug expression. Impossible! The 2 of them exclaimed in shock. Wang Gongzi, surely you are joking? There isn't a single ore in the Central Plains that is sold for 300 gold taels per June. No one would buy the ores at such a price. If what you said is true, then we have to rethink the matter. Also, a weapon being sold for 10,000 gold taels? Wang Gongzi, we respect your grandfather. You might think that such words are amusing and interesting, but we do not share your thoughts. That is not a single person in the Central Plains who can sell it at such a price. Your joke isn't hilarious at all. The 2 of them had a grim expression. They had come to negotiate with Wang Chong with sincerity, but Wang Chong's attitude made them feel like they were being toyed with and disrespected. I am not joking, Wang Chong said impassively. He had finally understood why the capital's Zhang clan did not seize such a good opportunity even though it was right before them. Even if he didn't appear, the Zhang clan would not have managed to strike this deal. He was the only one who could align the destiny between Great Tang and Wood Steel. Looks like you hadn't done your homework before coming. The Hyderabad ores were being sold at 300 gold taels per June, and the matter wasn't up to negotiations at all. I don't know whether it is a price acceptable to you, but I can take it. On the other hand, if you are worried over whether I can gather 90,000 gold taels or not, your worry is needless. I will be able to gather the funds required soon. If you hope to work with me, I would recommend that you first think over the matter before coming to look for me, Wang Chong said. This wasn't arrogance, but confidence in his capabilities. The Zhang clan didn't know what kind of changes would occur in the weapon industry along with the onset of war. The Great Tang had been way too peaceful. It hadn't suffered a setback for too long a time. A long period of peace, along with a massive army, made the attitudes of the dwellers of the Central Plains towards the smithing industry completely different from the Sindhis and Arabs. In the Central Plains, it was sufficient as long as the weapon was of decent quality and that it wouldn't hinder a soldier's fighting. Even a distinguished smithing clan like the Zhang clan did not possess the attitude of pursuing utmost perfection in every single one of their work. Of the treasured weapons that they had made, they were willing to accept it as long as it was of acceptable quality. Thus, the prices of weapons in the Central Plains hadn't been too expensive. On the other hand, the Sindhis and, going further west, the Arabs, due to their limited population and frequent wars, they highly valued the quality of their weapons. The smithing of a good weapon took a significantly more time and effort in Sindhu and the other countries compared to the Central Plains. As such, the weapons in Sindhu and Abbasid Caliphate were much more expensive than in the Central Plains, and thus, the price of ores rose along with it as well, making the commodity more expensive than it was in the Central Plains. Rationally speaking, the smithing standards of the countries in the western regions was in no way superior to that of the Central Plains. However, just by their dedication to their occupation as craftsmen, the weapons forged in the western regions far surpassed the quality of the Central Plains. Even though the current level of standards of both parties didn't differ by much at this current moment, as time passed, the gap would only grow bigger. If Great Tang wanted to catch up with them, it had to first lose a series of war before it would start valuing the smithing industry once more. At that moment, those truly high-quality weapons made by master blacksmiths through dedicating their time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into it, would showcase their true value. The weapon industry in the Central Plains would then go through an overwhelming change. It was impossible for the Zhang clan to know that the change would occur in just a few years' time. However, Wang Chong had cut a step ahead of them. To him, no matter where he looked at it from, the deal on the Hyderabad ores was worth its price. Wang Gongzi, since you aren't willing to sell, we'll drop the matter. We will look for you again in a month's time. Of course, by then, it might be more appropriate for us to look for the two Sindhi monks. The two men were furious. Clearly, they did not take Wang Chong's words seriously. No matter what, it sounded like excuses to them. As an elder of the distinguished Zhang clan, they felt that they had already offered the best deal in their politest attitude. Wang Chong's fooling around made the two of them extremely displeased. Farewell, Wang Gongzi. Then they turned around to leave. Hee, I won't be sending you off. Wang Chong looked at the silhouette of the two and smiled faintly. Even without the Zhang clan, he could search for other smithing experts to assist him. The capital's Zhang clan found the Hyderabad ore too expensive and thought that Wang Chong was haggling insincerely with them. A month later, when he finally forged the Wuxia steel weapons from the Hyderabad ores, the Zhang clan would know that he wasn't lying at all. When they know the true value of the Hyderabad ore, they would be coming over to beg him. But by then, the price wouldn't be as it was. After all, the Zhang clan wasn't the only prominent smithing clan in Great Tang. Wang Chong chuckled and went back into the residence. That lad truly went too far. Doesn't he know that we're helping him? Let's see how he can come up with 90,000 gold taels in a month. The Court of Judicial Review isn't a joke. Selling a weapon for 10,000 gold taels? What a joke, is he mistaking gold for silver? What kind of weapon could reach such a price? While walking, the both of them complained furiously. They had come to negotiate with him earnestly, but they didn't expect that Wang Chong would be so arrogant, treating them with no respect whatsoever. Let's go back and report the matter to our clan head. I would like to see how he would earn 10,000 gold taels from smithing weapons. In fact, let's go contact the Sindhi monks straight in a month's time. As they spoke, they got onto their carriage and returned back to the Zhang clan. The matter with Hyderabad ore wasn't something that could be done on a whim. Wei Hao still needed time to look for experienced blacksmiths for Wang Chong. Wang Chong decided to devote all of his efforts into his martial arts during this interval. If he didn't recall wrongly, the royal court was currently discussing the establishment of the 3 great training camps, and in at most 3 months, the 3 great training camps would be officially established. Wang Chong wanted to join the Kunwu training camp, but just determination itself wasn't enough. More than that, he needed abilities that surpassed the others. After all, Kunwu training camp wasn't somewhere just anyone could enter. Besides, Yao Feng had suffered greatly in Wang Chong's hands in the vast crane pavilion, and Wang Chong did not believe that he was a person who would simply take it lying. Regardless of what, he needed to possess strength surpassing that of others to protect himself. This body-tempering pill will be the key to whether I will be able to enter the Kunwu training camp or not. Wang Chong pinched the heavy body-tempering pill with his thumb and forefinger. Then he lifted his head, opened his mouth and placed the body-tempering pill into it. The body-tempering pill could boost a person's stamina and strength significantly. However, what Wang Chong truly needed it for was for his training of the dragon bone art. There was a total of 3 types of techniques to cultivating one's bones. They were namely dragon bone, tiger bone, and panther bone. Other than the 3, the other methods were all considered unorthodox. Of these 3 bone tempering techniques, panther bone was the most common and its training method was the easiest to find. In comparison, tiger bones was much harder and only royalties and powerful nobles had it. Furthermore, it was normally treated as a treasure and it was exclusive to the clan or family, never leaked out to outsiders. The dragon bone was even rarer than that. Even the clans of the dukes had no access to it. It was closely confined to the royal family and they were strictly forbidden from leaking the manual out. Rumor had it that the dragon bone art was a bone tempering technique the ancient Yu the Great created for his descendants. After the Xia dynasty was destroyed, the Shang dynasty took over the heritage. From then, it passed down to the Zhou dynasty, then to the Han dynasty before reaching the Great Tang. Many people probably hadn't heard of this ultimate art. Wang Chong only happened to chance upon the precious dragon bone art. Even though it was only the very basic of body tempering techniques formed the core of one's martial arts. In his previous life, due to his laziness, He wasted an entire 4 years and missed the optimal age for tempering one's bones. In the end, no matter how hard he trained and how much guidance he received from the experts of the Central Plains, he was still limited by that. Eventually, when he reached Saint Fighter Realm, he found himself unable to take a single step forward. This was a great regret to Wang Chong. His failure in his previous life also had something to do with this. In this life, when he got a chance to start anew, Wang Chong could finally make up for this regret of his. With the Dragon Bone art, he would be able to break the limits of his previous life and reach even greater heights. Boom! Wang Chong rested for a brief moment before punching outward. Along with this punch, a burning wave gushed from Wang Chong's mouth downward, spreading to the rest of his body. Footwork, palm strikes, body bending, and stretching. What Wang Chong was practicing was no ordinary punching technique. Rather, he looked like a dragon which was stretching its body on the ground. Dragon bone art was a skill that emulated the movements of a dragon to pump one's blood, to guide an external origin energy source within the body, so as to stimulate the acupoints within one's body, thus changing the physique of a martial artist, evolving from a mortal bone into a dragon bone. Root bone was the foundation of all martial arts, and it determined one's future. A person with good root bone was able to achieve much more with less effort, whereas a person with inferior root bone would find his future achievements limited. Thus, even though the dragon bone art was in no way an earth-shaking ultimate skill, and it didn't bring a martial artist the ability to flip mountains and part oceans, Wang Chong still valued it highly. Pong! In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong's right hand converted from a fist to a palm and he advanced forward. His movements resembled the motion of a ferocious tiger descending a mountain. Suddenly, another fist whipped outward and a sonic boom sounded in the air. A powerful might gushed forward into the space before Wang Chong. This move was called Dragon Breath Fist. The core to practicing Dragon Breath Fist was for one to comprehend the breathing of a dragon. This single movement carried 28 bones and 64 muscles throughout the entire body along with it, creating a small gap within one's body that allowed the essence of the pill to flow through it, making it much easier to open up the hidden acupoints on one's body. The greatest problem with practicing this fist was that if one's movements were not sufficiently precise and accurate, or if one failed to fully comprehend the rhythm behind a dragon's breathing, not only would they be unable to open up a pathway for the medicinal essence to flow through, they might even damage the muscles and bones throughout the entire body. It could even be said that unless one was adept in it, training such a technique made it easy to wound one. However, Wang Chong was different. Even though he was only 15-year-old and his cultivation realm was pathetic, he was still a great marshal in the past who commanded all armies of Great Tang. It was easy for Wang Chong to figure out the essence of such as level of bone dragon art, so he was able to bypass this problem. Weird. As he continued practicing, he abruptly paused and stopped. For some reason, Wang Chong felt that his movements were exceptionally easy while practicing bone dragon art this time. This was no longer just a matter of difficulty. Rather, his fists felt as though water melding within a river, and his body felt as though it was simply moving along with the current. Wang Chong understood his condition well. Previously, he had been living day after day aimlessly. Logically speaking, after not cultivating for such a long time, he should be finding the training difficult. Yet Wang Chong did not feel this way. Not only that, the sensation of becoming one with the skill wasn't something a cultivator of his level should be able to possess. A moment after this thought flashed across his head, Wang Chong shook his head and dumped the thought in the back of his mind. Dragon ascending the clouds. It wasn't the time to be thinking about such matters. Wang Chong turned and his foot stepped outward again. This movement was called Dragon Ascending the Clouds. Even though his feet hadn't left the ground, the fist from Wang Chong felt extremely nimble. His posture was in place, the meaning behind the fist was in place, his fist and hands were in place, and the sight looked as though a real dragon was ascending the clouds. Dragon Tail Whip. Dragon Claw. Wang Chong's movements were connected, as though a dragon traversing across the heavens. Every single movement was difficult and required one to have precise control over their muscles and bones. Through the dragon bone art, Wang Chong displayed a set of carefree and elegant movements. Forceful but at the same time nimble. Wang Chong moved all around the ground, but only 7 footsteps were imprinted on it. Taking a close look, one would realize that these footsteps seemed to be aligned with the Big Dipper constellation in the sky. This was called constellation steps, a footwork within the Bone Dragon art. Stepping on the stars of the celestial Big Dipper, the dragon traveled to and fro. These words referred to the constellation steps. The Wang family's courtyard was silent and no one was around. Wang Chong continued to practice the Bone Dragon art alone. Wang Chong's method of practicing bone tempering technique was very different from the others. Other people tend to swallow the body tempering pill straight in while cultivating. On the other hand, Wang Chong kept it in his mouth and sucked on it. This was a little trick one could use when cultivating a body tempering technique. While swallowing it straight could create a burst of energy, making training much more effective, but it resulted in a significant loss of medicinal property. However, sucking it in one's mouth was different. Even though the energy was being released at a very slow pace, the medicinal essence was being fully absorbed by one's body, thus allowing one to make full use of the effects of the pill. Time slowly passed. Wang Chong had already ordered that no one was to interrupt him today. Thus, he was granted tranquility and freedom. The medicinal essence of the pill was slowly released continuously, and Wang Chong could feel his entire body growing hotter and hotter. The strength of his entire body was also increasing steadily. Body tempering pill could boost a martial artist's strength. This was its main usage. Regardless of whether I am able to succeed in cultivating the dragon bone art, after I swallow this body tempering pill and train for a period of time, I should be able to reach Origin Energy Tier 4. Wang Chong thought as he executed the constellation steps. There were 9 tiers to the Origin Energy stage of a martial artist. Currently, Wang Chong was only at Origin Energy Tier 3 and he wasn't even able to match up to Wei Hao, who was at Origin Energy Tier 4, needless to say Yao Feng, who was at Origin Energy Tier 9. It was difficult for him to enter Kunwu training camp with this kind of cultivation realm. The 3 great training camps were currently still in its preparatory phases. Many people thought that the 3 great training camps were created specifically for the Scions, and all Scions could enter. Even Father Wang Yen thought so as well. However, Wang Chong knew that the recruitment requisites for the 3 great training camps would shock many. One had to possess at least a Tier 4 cultivation in order to enter the 3 great training camps. This caused a massive outrage and protests from many nobles and officials, but the one sitting at the top of the royal court was resolute on this matter. No one could change his mind. This was the rule that was implemented, and it would only get stricter from then on. The first batch of recruits into the training camps only needed a Tier 4 cultivation realm, but eventually it would be raised to Tier 5 and Tier 6. If Wang Chong was unable to squeeze into the first group of enlistees, it would only get harder and harder for him to enter. Thinking about such matters, Wang Chong's mind slowly blanked out to reach an imperturbable state. After an unknown period of time, Wang Chong finally opened his eyes. Looking at the sun that still hung high up in the sky, Wang Chong was taken aback. Based on his cultivation realm and the medicinal effect of the body tempering pill, Wang Chong had expected it would already be night by the time he finished absorbing the final bit of medicinal essence in the pill. Yet, for some reason, his training completed earlier than he expected. It was as though his body was exceptionally receptive to absorbing the medicinal essence of the body tempering pill. In his previous life, Wang Chong had become the Grand Marshal and eliminated all hindrances before him through his wits. It was impossible for him to make such an error in the time taken for his absorption of the body tempering pill. Just a slight error was unnatural, needless to say, it was such a huge disparity. Not just so, a person would normally be fatigued just by standing in a horse stance for so long. Yet, even though Wang Chong had been moving about for so long, he didn't feel tired at all. What is going on? Wang Chong looked at the sky in doubt. He had already experienced such a sensation when he challenged Yao Feng in the vast crane pavilion back then. His body seemed to have changed significantly from how he was in his previous life after coming here. His movements were much more nimble and he managed to avoid many attacks which should have been impossible for him to avoid. Back then, the sensation wasn't that apparent, so Wang Chong didn't pay it much heed. But as time went by, Wang Chong realized that the changes were becoming more and more obvious. The body-tempering pill only boosts one's strength. It is impossible for one to feel nimble. Furthermore, if the body-tempering pill can be assimilated into one's body so easily, he wouldn't have needed to send so many people out to purchase herbs to complement his absorption of the pill. What went wrong? Ripples of doubt spread across Wang Chong's mind. The current him and the impression he had of himself in his previous life on the path of martial arts seemed to be completely different. Wang Chong mused over the matter, but he was unable to find anything that could have resulted in it. If one had to really point out something, it could only be his act of reincarnating. Is it that shooting star? Wang Chong thought. If not for that shooting star, it would have been impossible for him to reincarnate here. If there was a problem, it was definitely that mysterious shooting star. Furthermore, Wang Chong could vaguely remember some voice sounding by his ear right before his death. Just that he only had a hazy memory of it now. Could it be that the powers of the mysterious shooting star had remodeled my body? Wang Chong thought. However, after his reincarnation, Wang Chong had checked on the condition of his body thoroughly, and he didn't find anything amiss. I guess this matter would remain an eternal mystery. Wang Chong sighed. Soon he calmed down. Even though he had miscalculated, he soon realized that he had reaped unexpected rewards within his body. Not bad. Origin Energy Tier 3 Pinnacle. Just a step off from reaching Origin Energy Tier 4. As long as I work harder these few days, I should be able to step into the next level. Wang Chong nodded his head in delight. The benefits from the body-tempering pill was much greater than he had expected. Under normal conditions, body-tempering pill could only raise one halfway through the Origin Energy Tier 3. However, through his nifty trick, Wang Chong was able to achieve gains surpassing that of what normally possible. Of the 9 tiers of Origin Energy, the first 3 tiers, still stance, imbued tendons, and imbued bones were all fundamentals. One could only be considered as a true martial artist when reaching Origin Energy Tier 4. By then, one's body would generate an imbuing sensation which would then evolve to become Origin Energy. By cultivating it and nourishing it, one would grow stronger and stronger. Only then can one be considered as a true Origin Energy martial artist. Wang Chong thought. The realm which one looked forward the most to reaching was Origin Energy Tier 4. At that realm, one's strengthened flesh and blood would generate Origin Energy. With this Origin Energy, one's cultivation would progress smoother, thus growing stronger at a faster rate. For the next few days, Wang Chong continued to train in his backyard without anyone interrupting him. In his previous life, Wang Chong used to slack off frequently. In this one, Wang Chong was incomparably focused and serious about his training. Boom! 3 days later, while Wang Chong was still practicing the dragon bone art, his body suddenly jolted, as though a furious wave had crashed onto a shore and broke through a dam. Wang Chong felt an invisible shackle being broken and a feeling of lightness gushed over his entire body. Wang Chong could clearly sense that his strength had increased significantly. Success! Wang Chong could sense an energy being generated from his countless cells of his 4 limbs and blood, and gradually, he could feel a weak imbuing sensation. Wang Chong melded all these imbuing sensations together, and soon, it gathered at his dantian to form Origin Energy. Such a nostalgic sensation, feeling the infant-like Origin Energy in his body. Wang Chong clenched his fist in agitation. This wasn't the first time Wang Chong was reaching Origin Energy Tier 4, and compared to his earth-shattering power in his previous life, Origin Energy Tier 4 was not worth mentioning at all. However, to Wang Chong it carried great significance. Origin Energy Tier 4 at 15-year-old. He had finally accomplished something that he wasn't able to do in his previous life. At 15-year-old, the optimal age for tempering one's bones, he created a solid foundation. He still didn't have any idea whether he would be able to bypass his previous limits, but at the very least, the possibility of it existed now. Wang. Just when Wang Chong was feeling delighted over the matter, an abrupt situation occurred. Feeling an intangible sense of hostility and danger in the air, Wang Chong's heart tightened. Who is it? Wang Chong's face darkened and he bellowed. Boom! What that, replied Wang Chong, was a savage fist. This fist was earth-shattering, causing the air in the entire courtyard to boom in resonance to it, and it flew straight toward Wang Chong. "Brother, try my fist." Along with the fist came an immature voice. Hearing that voice, Wang Chong was taken aback. "Little sister!" Wang Chong didn't expect that it would be his younger sister who assaulted him. Wasn't this fellow grounded by their mother? Why did she come to this courtyard? However, he had no time to think too much into the matter. The small fist was already right before his face. Wang Chong knew his little sister too well. Her cultivation realm might not be exceptionally high, but she possessed frightening strength to make up for it. Even Yao Feng, who was at Origin Energy Tier 9, could only kneel before her. What that made Wang Chong shuddered even more was that his younger sister never went easy on anyone. If he were to be struck by her, even if he were to survive it, he would be heavily injured at the very least. Pong! Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Wang Chong didn't have much time to think. With a step of the left foot, he danced along with the constellations and executed a technique he just learned from the dragon bone art. Dragon diving into the abyss. So, in an instant he dashed forward. Wang Chong would not have been able to maneuver such a movement in the past, but after reaching Origin Energy Tier 4, Wang Chong's reaction speed and agility had increased significantly. The fearsome force passed by Wang Chong's body with just the slightest bit of gap. In fact, Wang Chong could even feel his face creasing from the heavy wind generated by the shock wave of her blow. That shock wave felt like daggers to the skin, causing excruciating pain to one's face. "Little sister, what are you trying to do?" Distressed by her sudden actions, Wang Chong felt infuriated. He wasn't Yao Feng, nor was he the veteran guards of the Yao residence. If this fist were to strike him, he would have to lie in bed for at least half a month. However, Wang Chong's words were completely neglected. "That shouldn't be. Given that little bit of strength you possess, you shouldn't be able to dodge my fist though." Several zhang away, the Wang family's little sister's face was tilted in confusion. She hadn't moved at all ever since released the fist. Not hearing Wang Chong's words at all, she mumbled to herself, "Brother, when did your reaction speed get so fast?" The Wang family's little sister lifted her head and asked Wang Chong. She knew of Wang Chong's cultivation realm, and at that instant, Wang Chong's reaction speed and agility were clearly much faster than before. This lass. Wang Chong felt angry and amused at the same time. Somehow, he couldn't bring himself to vent his anger on her. "Did you think that you were the only one who would improve? King Song had given me a body-tempering pill. Naturally, my abilities would rise as well." "Oh, is that so? Boring." The Wang family's little sister waved her hands. She soon lost all curiosity she had of Wang Chong. "You lass, weren't you grounded by mother? How were you able to come over here?" Wang Chong said impatiently. Reaching Origin Energy Tier 4 didn't just boost his strength. His reaction speed and agility were boosted as well. 3 days have already passed. Why would I still be grounded?" Wang Xiaoyao glared at her brother in dissatisfaction and pouted. Turning around, right when she was about to leave, she said, "Also, that fatty youngster Wei has come to our house. If it wasn't for him looking for you, I wouldn't have come over." "What? Wei Hao is here." Wang Chong was delighted. Without any hesitation at all, he immediately rushed over. Indeed, Wei Hao came with good news. 3 days, 4 days if considering the day when Wang Chong went to the Eight Gods Pavilion, had passed, and Wei Hao, using the connections of his family, had managed to find for Wang Chong the required manpower for refining and forging the Hyderabad ores. "Father never allowed me to interfere in the family business easily. It took me great effort to get the few of them behind father's back. Although these blacksmiths were not the best of the lot, they were more than sufficient to accomplish your task. Wang Chong, take a look. How is it?" "Not bad." "Huh." Wei Hao brought Wang Chong and his sister to the western suburbs of the city, into a hidden cavern mine. He pointed to the 12 bulky and men with bared top with a gleeful expression. Taking a glance, the 12 men were as though steel towers, possessing great strength beneath their bodies. There were also thick calluses on their fingers. It could be seen that they were smithing experts. It was clear that Wei Hao had taken the task he had delegated to him seriously. Not bad, acceptable. Wang Chong nodded his head seriously. I've told you we're brothers. You don't need to worry about my ability to get things done. Wei Hao smiled gleefully. Pointing to Wang Chong, he said loudly, "Call young Master Chong." Young Master Chong. The 12 bronze-skinned men bowed and called with a respectful expression. To be able to be a brother of their young master, the little brother beside him must be of esteemed standing as well. Wei Hao, I will skip the pleasantries. Thank you. Wang Chong patted Wei Hao's shoulders in delight. Hyderabad was an extremely important part of his plan. With the 12 craftsmen from the Wei residence, he was finally about to embark on his plan. Wang Chong's heart beat furiously in anticipation and nervousness. There was a great amount of money to be earned from the Wuxia steel weapons. No one knew this fact greater than Wang Chong himself. Right now, the Hyderabad ores had just surfaced, and as long as he were to take down this deal, wealth would come rolling in like a flood. Wei Hao left everything in the Wang Chong's hands. Wang Chong didn't stand on ceremonies, and flinging his robe back, he stepped forward. Walala. Several black Hyderabad ores rolled down from his sleeves onto the floor. From now on, you will be split into 4 teams. I only have one request, that is, for 24 hours a day, the fire in the furnace must be lit. Now let's begin, Wang Chong commanded. Even though he looked immature, being just 15-year-old, Wang Chong was still a person who had led the great Tang's armies in the past. The majesty still lingered upon him and authority exuded from his words. Yes, young Master Chong, the blacksmiths immediately replied. Boom, pulling the iron chain, the gates were opened. A crimson fiery heat wave gushed down the valve from the top and dense smoke filled the entire cavern. The 12 blacksmiths got into position. Just like that, the forge of the Wei residence started to get into action. Even though Wang Chong had seen and experienced much, this was his first time seeing a forge in his current life. A unique feeling arose in his heart. How hot is the heat wave? Looking at the crimson heat wave from the top of the valve, Wang Chong walked over and asked, 2,300 degrees. By the valve, a 40-year-old bronze-skinned craftsman said proudly. The Wei clan had specially looked for a feng shui master to look for an underground lava flow for it. This temperature achievable by such an underground lava flow was much greater than the other methods. In the entire capital, there weren't more than 5 underground lava flow like the Wei clans. If not for their young master's request, under normal conditions, this facility would never be open to outsiders. The temperature is too high. Lower it to 1,500 degrees. He didn't expect that Wang Chong would frown and give such an order instead. Ah! The head craftsman was taken aback. He wasn't able to comprehend the meaning of Wang Chong's actions and hurriedly argued. But young Master Chong, this kind of lava flow is hard to come by. There are many distinguished families who would love to get their hands on it. Furthermore, on refining ores, the higher the temperature, the better it is. Just do as I say, Wang Chong said authoritatively. The head craftsman was taken aback. Usually, swords and blades were forged under high temperature, and the higher the temperature, the easier it would be to rid the ore of its impurities, allowing the sword forged to be of better quality. This was one of the basic logic behind forging. This kid who was known as young Master Chong clearly knew nothing of the matter. Anyone else would be overjoyed to see the underground lava flow. But that kid found the temperature too high. He already didn't know what else he should say. Stop complaining. Just do as young Master Chong says, Wei Hao said. Even though he wasn't adept in forging, he knew that Wang Chong wouldn't do something without reason. Sigh! Upon hearing those words, the middle-aged head craftsman sighed within. He lamented that these ores were going to be wasted. Even if a weapon could be forged out of it, it was unlikely to be of good quality. It wasn't his ore and it wasn't his place to worry about it, but even so, he still felt that it was a pity. Release the river sand. The head craftsman bellowed toward another craftsman. Boom! From the top of the cavern, iron chains moved, causing large metal buckets to tilt, and a massive amount of sand grains fell into the valve. The furnace's temperature could not be lowered by using water, and only sand was effective. This was something the Central Plains craftsmen had figured out through trials and errors, and on this aspect, their techniques were superior to that of the Western region's forges. The moment the sand was poured in, dense smoke came gushing out. Seeing that the heat had gone down significantly, Wang Chong nodded his head in satisfaction. Wang Chong didn't know forging, but he knew of the properties of the Hyderabad ores. This type of ore was completely different from the others. Other ores did better under higher temperatures, but the refinement temperature for Hyderabad ores must not exceed 1,500 degrees. Excessive heat would cause the carbon within the wood steel to be lost, and the crystallized structure would be ruined. If so, the wood steel would be no different from any normal iron. Due to too many people being unaware of this, along with the Abbasid Caliphate's intentional guarding of the secret, many failed and incomplete products of the wood steel appeared in the other countries. Forging wood steel in such a manner caused its quality to be lowered greatly. It was a waste of a precious commodity. As such, in his previous life, other than the Abbasid Caliphate and kerosene, there weren't any countries which were able to create the true wood steel weapons. Right now, the Hyderabad ores had just surfaced. Wang Chong was certain that more than half of the Hyderabad ores being sold out now would go to waste. As long as he guarded this secret, he would possess an immense advantage over others for a very long time. At the very least, for a couple of years, he would have an advantage over the Abbasid Caliphate. And the latter happened to be his greatest competitor for the Hyderabad ores. There were many secrets to forging the wood steel from the Hyderabad ores. It wasn't possible to create wood steel just by laying one's hands on the ores. Unless required, Wang Chong would never say these secrets out. Boom! The temperature in the valve was lowered to 1,500 degrees. The refinement of the Hyderabad ores had finally officially started. These ores, which came from the faraway Sindh mines, were thrown into the several zhang tall furnace. After which, the flames gushed up from the bottom of the valve and the crackling of which echoed loudly in the cavern. Wang Chong didn't know that while he was secretly refining the Hyderabad ores in the cavern, in another location, Yao Guangyi was dressed in a metal chainmail and equipped with his sword. He was about to embark on the final move of his plan. Whether I would be able to distance the Song clan from the Wang clan would depend on this. Yao Guangyi's eyes lit up. Sitting on the back of the horse, an ambitious glint radiated in his eyes. There were no justified wars in the spring and autumn period. Similarly, there was no kindness in the royal court. Even though his plan in the vast crane pavilion had been wrecked by the Wang family siblings, Yao Guangyi still had a follow-up plan. As long as the plan by the border went as he planned, the Song and Wang clan would definitely break away from one another. As long as King Song fell, King Qi would be able to reign supreme in the court. He would have no more rivals on the court, and Yao clan, who was on this massive tree, would soar to the heavens along with it. Even if the old master died, the Yao clan would still be able to retain its wealth and glory for a very long time. For the sake of the future of their descendants, the old master and he had gone through much efforts to plan this out to deal with the Wang clan. Jaya! Yao Guangyi squeezed the abdomen of the horse and the duo galloped away into the distant. Days passed one after another. Every day there would be progress in the refinement of the Hyderabad ores. Wang Chong did not understand forging, but he believed in the craftsman way how brought him. Given their abilities, they should be able to fully satisfy his demands. 5 days later, it's done. We're about to forge metal ingots. The air in the cavern was burning. The perspiring head craftsman suddenly shouted, and his words caught the attention of everyone in the cavern. Wang! The moment the furnace opened, four bulky craftsmen almost simultaneously stretched out their tongs into the hot furnace to take out 4 successfully refined Hyderabad ores, or rather wood steel, and placed it on the metal platform. It's truly incredible. How heavy! To think that a single ore could form such a huge metal ingot. The metallic content of the ore must be incredible. There is a hint of blue in the flames. I have processed ores from decades and came into contact with countless ores. But this is my first time encountering such an ore. Look, just the ingot itself already had the shine of a metal, something which should have taken hundreds of refinement and hammering to achieve. It is truly a miracle. The crowd gathered around the 4 wood steel ingots around the metal platform. Their eyes were widened to the brim and words of amazement spouted from their mouths. When Wang Chong took out the 4 black metal ores and passed it to them, he didn't say much about it. However, given their experience in processing ores, no matter how slow-witted they could be, it was apparent that the ore Wang Chong had given them to process didn't come from the Central Plains. It was impossible for the Central Plains to have an ore that could cause the flames of the furnace to glow blue. It was even more impossible for it to have the shine of a metal just after the primary refinement. They had never seen such a sight in the past several decades of their life. No wonder he had me lower the temperature to below 1,500 degrees. The 40-year-old head craftsman came to a realization. Great! It's indeed wood steel. At this moment, Wang Chong was extremely agitated. Even though he had seen wood steel weapon in the past, he had never seen the rough cast of wood steel after its primary refinement. This was the first time wood steel was showing its shine on the Central Plains. This was a significant improvement from his previous life. We can start forging weapons now. Wang Chong clenched his fist tightly. Now that the primary refinement was done, the next step was to use the ingot to forge the final weapon. This step was even more important than refining the ore. The craftsman had to be additionally careful to prevent any errors from occurring. Shut the furnace. Use pine branches to fuel the flames. Align the bellows. Make sure that the temperature does not exceed 300 degrees. Wang Chong commanded. His words attracted everyone's attention. The 12 craftsmen looked over with bizarre expressions. Wang Chong's command was inconceivable to them. Young Master Chong, isn't the temperature a little too low? Indeed, there isn't a single person in the entire Great Tang that uses such low temperature to forge weapons. The results of doing so will be extremely poor, and even a week wouldn't be sufficient to create a single weapon. Several craftsmen mustered their courage to say. It was one thing to lower the temperature from over 2,000 degrees to 1,500 degrees earlier. After all, 1,500 degrees was still a high temperature. But what Wang Chong was demanding now was for them to forge weapons at 300 degrees. This was something completely unheard of, as though a request from an ignorant oaf. Even if Wang Chong was of higher standing than them, they couldn't help but refute him. This wasn't the proper way to forge weapons. This is called cold forging. Just do as I say, Wang Chong said impassively. His gaze remained resolute even when it met the eyes of the 12 experts craftsmen. Cold forging was a unique weapon forging method. It could greatly strengthen the resilience and toughness of a weapon. However, in this era, cold forging had yet to appear. Most of the weapons were still created under high temperature. That was because high temperature softened metal, making it easier to mold them into shape. Furthermore, it reduced the time required to forge it. However, not a lot of people knew that even though cold forging took a significantly longer time, the weapons forged through so were much stronger and tougher than the weapons forged under high temperature. If Wang Chong wanted to forge a top-class wood steel weapon, he had to cold forge it. Of course, cold forging did not mean forging in a cold environment. Rather, it was comparative to the mainstream high temperatures required for forging. The ideal temperature to forge wood steel was around 300 or so. If one failed to comprehend this, the weapon forged out of wood steel would still be far from its full potential. Even though the Abbasid Caliphate was closer to Sindhu and they were able to get their hands on the Hyderabad ores earlier than Wang Chong, they would need at least 5 to 6 years before they could forge wood steel weapon of comparable quality to Wang Chong's. Cold forging. Wang Chong's words sounded ridiculous to the craftsmen. They truly had no idea what Wang Chong was talking about. Enough! Why do you need to think so much over the matter? Just do as you are told. Wei Hao wasn't as patient as Wang Chong. He immediately started to reprimand them all. Why do you need to care so much? Just forge as you are told. It's not like it's your weapon. Why argue so much over it? Wang Chong chuckled. He knew that Wei Hao wasn't really discontent with them. Rather, it was just his personality. However, after being reprimanded by Wei Hao, these craftsmen stopped all complaints and got to work once more. 3 people will be in a team, and all teams will start work together. If 7 days is insufficient, we will use 10 days. This is the blueprint for the first weapon. Let's begin. Wang Chong opened a blueprint and shouted to the craftsmen. Wang Chong didn't know how to forge weapons, but all those who were here were one of the best craftsmen. Wei Hao had chosen them over the rest, so how could they be inferior? Furthermore, they posed countless questions to Wang Chong over the refinement and forging, almost nitpicking the details. If they weren't the top craftsmen, they wouldn't be behaving in such a way. The more talented a craftsman was, the more arrogant they tended to be. They didn't want inferior goods to be created under their hands. Just by the fact that they nitpicked the details itself showed that they were capable. Ding ding dang dang. Soon, the craftsmen got to work once more. Other than Wang Chong, no one knew of cold forging, an entirely new forging method in the era. For the first time, it was appearing in this world. Little sister, when the weapons are done, I need you to help me with something. Wang Chong suddenly turned around to say, "What is it?" Wang family's little sister yawned in boredom. When she heard Sindhu and Hyderabad, she thought that it was something fun. Yet, it turned out to be forging. Boring. Help me hammer these weapons once more. 3,000 times for every weapon. Wang Chong said. Shwa. Wei Hao was impressed and he shot a thumbs up. Wang Chong, you sure are incredible. To think that you would think of using Xiao Yao's unrivaled strength to hammer metal. With her strength, the quality of these weapons would be raised by an entire level. However, it was wishful thinking on the duo's part. No way. Wang family's little sister rolled her eyes. Without even thinking about it, she rejected him outright. To think that he would try to use her as free labor, did he think that she was a 3-year-old kid? He must be dreaming. 100 gold taels. I won't work for free. Without any hesitation, Wang Chong shot her a thumbs up. Ah! The Wang family's little sister eyes lit up. Abruptly, her eyes widened into perfect circles. It seemed like she was truly moved by her brother's words. 100 taels of gold. She might be young, but she could still tell the difference between gold and silver. She only had 10 silver taels every month, and Wang Chong was promising to give her 100 gold taels. If she had that much money, wouldn't she be rich? Just by thinking of it made her agitated. I refuse. Wang family's little sister pouted, and she abruptly turned her head over, rejecting Wang Chong's offer. Wang Chong and Wei Hao were astounded. Just when they thought that they had miscalculated her, and that the Wang family's little sister was truly unwilling to work, they heard her voice echo by their ears. 200 taels. Not a single tael less. Otherwise, I will tell it to my mother. I will have her teach you a lesson. The primary astonishment turned into a bizarre expression as Wang Chong and Wei Hao heard her words, especially when she said the final sentence. Wei Hao couldn't hold it in any longer and burst into laughter. Clutching his stomach, he nearly died of laughing. Ha ha ha. Truly hilarious. Wang Chong. To think that you would have such a day. Ha ha. Xiao Yao, there is no need to stand on ceremony with him. Your brother is truly a wealthy man now. If he refuses to pay up, have your mother teach him a lesson. Seeing the serious look on Wang Xiao Yao's face, his lungs nearly collapsed from all the laughter. Wang Chong shook his head awkwardly. This time, they had really made a joke of themselves before Wei Hao. As expected, this little sister of his was a true money grubber. Exactly the way she was in the past. Deal. He had a lot of money on his hand now. Using Wei Hao's words, he was a tycoon now. 200 gold taels wasn't a big matter for him now. Yay! The Wang family's little sister clenched her fist in agitation and her face flushed. She was only trying him out, but to think that she would succeed. But soon, Wang family's little sister seemed to have thought of something and she immediately calmed down. With a doubtful look, she glanced at Wang Chong. 200 gold taels, right? Gold is not the same as silver. Third brother, you cannot lie to me. Wang Chong burst into laughter. This lass. She was the one who demanded 200 gold taels from him. Yet, when he promised her that, she did not believe him and started to doubt him. This fortune came too easily for her. Of course. When did your brother ever lie to you? Here are 200 gold taels. If you don't believe me, I can pass this to you first. Wang Chong took out the gold from his embrace and passed it over. Even though 200 gold taels was a significant sum, Using it to employ the Herculean origin energy Tier 9 little sister of his was still acceptable by Wang Chong. In his previous life, the reason why wood steel could be sold for tens of thousands, sometimes even 100,000, was not only because wood steel was a precious commodity. More importantly, it was due to the aesthetics the weapon possessed. Every single wood steel weapon was crafted painstakingly to perfection. Even though Hyderabad was where the ore came from, Abbasid Caliphate and Damascus were the true hubs of wood steel. The Hyderabad ore had just emerged and everything was in its primary phase. Wang Chong still didn't have any competitors. What Wang Chong wanted to do wasn't to sell Hyderabad ores, but to build his own brand. Those who used several tens of thousands and even hundreds of thousands to buy wood steel weapons weren't fools either. If wood steel didn't possess quality that was unmatched by the other weapons of its tier and required great technique and technology to forge, no one would be willing to spend the money on it. Cold forging was an important process of the forging and required the blacksmith to use all of his strength into every single hammer for thousands of times. The greater the strength exerted into it, the stronger the weapon would be. On this aspect, given his little sister's unrivaled strength which was equivalent to that of an origin energy Tier 9 expert, Wang Chong was certain that the weapons forged out of wood steel would definitely possess incredible quality and outstanding aesthetics. Deal. Don't you dare renege on your promise. Seeing the 200 taels of gold, Wang family's little sister's eyes nearly popped out. Taking it from Wang Chong's hands, she stared at him nervously, as though afraid that he would go back on his words. But brother, where did you get so much money from? Wang family's little sister eventually found what was amiss of the situation. That fatty youngster Wei only said that her brother had earned a lot of money, but he didn't say where did the money come from. Another 10 taels. Don't tell anything to mother. Wang Chong stuffed another golden ingot to her. Deal. After gaining possession of so many gold taels, Wang family's little sister was overjoyed. At this point, she no longer cared where Wang Chong got the money from. Heck, she truly is a money grubber. Seeing the sight, Wei Hao perspired profusely. With the expert little sister working, the progress of the wood steel's forging increased significantly. Wang Chong wasn't in a hurry either. He spent his days cultivating and overlooking the progress of the craftsman, waiting patiently for the day of the completion of the cold-forged wood steel weapons. Time slowly passed. Wang Chong spent his time cultivating while waiting patiently for the cold-forged wood steel weapons to be completed. But 10 days from then, a sudden news from the borders rattled the capital. Yao Guangyi, a famous general of the Great Tang known for his schemes and wits, the third son of Old Master Yao. When the Hu crossed the border and stepped on Great Tang's border, he abruptly led his army out from his deployment location for no apparent reason and appeared on Duke Zhou's second son's, Wang Yan, deployment location. But what was bizarre about the situation was that General Wang Yan, who was closest to the invasion point and should have been guarding his location, happened to move his campground back 50 li before the Hu invaded. Thus, such a bizarre sight appeared for the first time by the borders. The general who should have been guarding his location was looking at the battle from behind while the general who shouldn't have appeared in the location took over the guarding general's position to destroy the invading Hu army. In the centuries since Great Tang's establishment, never had such a sight appeared before. The ones involved in the incident, Yao Guangyi and Wang Yan, were keeping mum about the matter. However, this bizarre assault incident had caused a huge uproar in the capital. Before the Hu invasion could cause any damage, it was already destroyed by the Great Tang army. On this aspect, the assault incident was only an insignificant skirmish by the border, not worth mentioning at all. However, those in the capital weren't fools. The old Master Yao's third son, Yao Guangyi, and Duke Zhou's second son, Wang Yan, were involved in the matter, and considering the fact that King Song and King Qi happened to be in a heated political war at the moment, the situation was definitely not as simple as it looked. Even fools could tell that if Wang Yan did not coincidentally retreat 50 li from his deployment region before Yao Guangyi's appearance, the significance of the matter would be completely different. Regardless of the truth, just the political meaning behind the Yao and Wang clan working together to repel the invaders opened up too many hints about the relationship between the two. People don't believe what you say, they only believe what they see. But now, When Yao Guangyi's army appeared in the zone, Wang Yan took the initiative to avoid the suspicion and retreated 50 li to stay away from the battlefield. This made the entire incident a one-man show on Yao Guangyi's part, and he ended up striking down the Hu in Wang Yan's place. Even fools could tell how intentional the affair was, and the scheme that lay behind it. Regardless of what the Wang clan was up to, Wang Yan had used his actions to display the attitude of the Wang clan. Yao Guangyi, a scheming old veteran of the royal court, had never lost in the past. He single-handedly created the feud between the Song and the Qi and stripped King Song of his trusty aides. For the first time, by the border, he suffered a crushing defeat in the field he expertised in. Furthermore, he lost in an extremely foolish manner, making a huge laughingstock out of himself. Ha ha ha! Great! When the news reached King Song residence, King Song abruptly slammed his hand on the table. All of the worry and frustration he accumulated throughout recent days disappeared along with that slam. At this moment, King Song felt extremely relaxed. Wang Yan, I have not judged you wrongly. I have not judged the Wang clan wrongly. As long as I have the assistance of the Wang clan and Duke Zhou, even if everyone were to betray me and leave my side, what do I have to fear? Sitting in the main hall, delight exuded from King Song's face. This was the most positive news he had heard in this half-month. Wang Yan had used his actions to express the attitude and stand of the Wang clan. At this moment, the final doubts that King Song had of him disappeared along with the wind. Your Highness, didn't I say that Wang Yan wouldn't betray you? At the bottom of King Song's seat, Lu Ting looked at King Song with a smile. He was dressed in a blue robe and he held a fan in his hand. Ha ha ha, Academic Lu. You can say anything you want on the matter. King Song pressed against the handles of the chair and stood up from his throne. I would like to see what King Qi thinks of the matter. That bastard. I nearly fell for his tricks. Recalling everything that had just happened, King Song was still traumatized. King Qi and Yao Guangyi had poached too many people from his side. Sometimes, he couldn't help but doubt everyone around him, unable to find the mood to eat even. After living in the royal court for such a long time, King Song was well aware of what his subordinates would think if they were subjected to his delusional guesses. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that everyone might leave him due to that. He was just a step off from that. But right before the edge of the cliff, Wang Yan woke him up. As long as Wang Yan and the entire Wang clan supported him, he hadn't lost yet. He would still have an opportunity to make a comeback. It was an utter failure of the King Qi faction in this battle. As he thought so, he turned around to look at the old butler. Even though the latter was placid and it was impossible to see any emotion on his face, he soon understood the meaning behind his master's gaze. Your Highness, your old servant admits that his mistake. I was too skeptical on this affair and wronged the Wang clan. If possible, I would like to go ahead and apologize to General Wang directly, the old butler said calmly. Back then, it was him who invited Wang Yan to the King Song residence. It was also him who told King Song when he had chosen to trust Wang Yan to not be too trusting of others, and the truth could be determined in the future. Facts had proven that it was all Yao Guangyi and King Qi's scheme to frame the Wang clan, and that Wang Yan was a trustworthy subordinate. Even though he was wrong, the old butler wasn't depressed in the least. Rather, he felt happy for King Song. What are you thinking of? This was my intention back then and it had nothing to do with you. I will clean up my own mess, so there's no need for you to look for Wang Yan. When Duke Zhou's birthday comes, I will apologize to him myself and explain this to him. King Song waved his hands. The fact that Wang Yan knew that he had to retreat 50 li showed that the Wang clan wasn't completely oblivious on the matter. At the very least, they knew that King Song was suspicious of them. King Song wasn't an irresponsible person. Since he had made a mistake, he wouldn't push the blame onto others. Your Highness, don't worry about it. Duke Zhou wouldn't be bothered by it. I will accompany your Highness when the time comes. Seeing this sight, Lu Ting chuckled beneath his hands. This was the King Song that he knew. Even though he might be blinded by a moment of folly, he would soon realize his own mistakes and admit his own faults courageously. Given his identity as a member of royalty, this quality of his was extremely precious and rare. This was also the reason why he was so loyal to King Song. However, Your Highness, don't you think that there's something weird about the matter? Chuckling, Lu Ting abruptly said, Wang Yan's nature tends to be straightforward and inflexible. So how would he know that Yao Guangyi's troop would bring his troop to his deployment area? Furthermore, how could he have known that the enemy would attack and choose to retreat 50 li in advance? This isn't something he is capable of. If Wang Yan was that flexible and astute, Yao Guangyi wouldn't have chosen to strike the Wang clan from him and suffer such a huge failure by the border in return, becoming a laughingstock of everyone else. You are saying that? King Song's body jolted. Lu Ting's reminder left him in contemplation. He was only overjoyed over the matter, and he didn't bother to think about the bizarre parts of the matter. Indeed, this wasn't the first day he and Lu Ting had known Wang Yan. He was well aware of how Wang Yan operated. Wang Yan's actions, which caused Yao Guangyi to be disgraced, was indeed unlike him. Could this be the Duke Zhou's intentions? Thinking about the matter, he could only attribute the matter to the respected old master of the Wang clan. If this wasn't Wang Yan's intentions, it could only be old Master Wang guiding him from his back. Also, Wang Yan would only listen to the words of the old master. Duke Zhou had survived and stood at the apex of the royal court for decades. Even after he had retired, he was invited to the Four Quarters Embassy, and the emperor also often consulted him on politics. I also hoped that he was the one. But schemes and political fights aren't Duke Zhou's expertise. Furthermore, no matter how incredible the old master is, he stays in the Four Quarters Embassy all the time and rarely goes out. If so, how could he have known that Yao Guangyi was going to lead his army to Wang Yan's deployment zone? Lu Ting said, It isn't the old master? King Song frowned. He thought that he had already arrived at the answer, but Lu Ting refuted his words. If it wasn't the old master, who else could it be? Yao Guangyi wasn't an average person, and not everyone could win him in a battle of wits and make him a laughingstock. Not to mention, the fellow wasn't able to say anything about the huge setback he suffered at all. No one of the Wang clan seemed to possess such ability. Duke Zhou's eldest son, Wang Zhen, was a court official as well as a noble. He often went to the royal court for discussions and was skilled in politics as well, so it was possible for him to be the one. However, he was an academic official instead of a military one. He practically knew nothing about the military, needless to say, advice Wang Yan on the aspect. The youngest son, Wang Dian, was serving as an instructor at Heavenly Dragon Mountain, and he was an oaf. The rest of them were females. Who could be the one who advised Wang Yan? Furthermore, his means were profound yet simple. Just by moving 50 li back, he managed to cause the intelligent Yao Guangyi's plan to fall apart and become a laughingstock. What's more, he wasn't able to complain about the matter at all. His discernment ability, his thoughts, and his means were top class. If such a person were to assist him, it would be as though equipping a pair of wings, allowing him to fly to even greater heights. Due to Yao Guangyi and King Qi's poaching, nearly all of his aides left his side. This made King Song even more so aware of the fact that he was lacking a talent of Yao Guangyi's caliber by his side. Lu Ting was an excellent strategist, but he was only adept in analyzing. He lacked the ability to craft plans to deal with others, and thus he was still a significant way off from the person who guided Wang Yan. Who could it be? King Song dredged up every single person he could think of, but he was unable to pinpoint anyone. Your Highness, have you forgotten that there is such a person around Wang Yan? Lu Ting said. Who? King Song lifted his head and asked immediately. Have your Highness forgotten that Wang Yan's family's third young master? Your Highness had sent him a present not too long ago. Lu Ting smiled meaningfully. You mean him? King Song was taken aback. He finally knew who Lu Ting was pointing to. Impossible! Even though Lu Ting said that it was that old master of the opposite faction, King Song wouldn't be so astonished. After all, Lu Ting was saying that a teenage kid was able to match up to a veteran top-tier strategist. King Song found the situation unbelievable. How could a teenage child possibly see through Yao Guangyi's plans and advice his father from countless miles away? I am raising a possibility. Lu Ting said, have your highness forgotten the one who laughs in the end is the winner? And the incident with Bao Xian? These two incidents also didn't seem like it was done by a teenage kid. Boom! Lu Ting's words struck through King Song's brain like a lightning strike. In that instant, King Song felt indescribably shocked. Indeed, if one were to say that this matter didn't seem like the doing of a teenage kid, then did what the third Gongzi of the Wang family did before seem like the doing of an ordinary child? King Song recalled Lu Ting's words once more. Could the fight in the vast crane pavilion between the Wang and Yao truly be intentionally triggered by one party? If that was true, then the incident was truly shocking. Of course, this was just a conjecture. Just like Lu Ting said, it was just a possibility. Even so, this was sufficient for the name Wang Chong to be inscribed deeply in King Song's brain. It will be Duke Zhou's birthday soon. No matter what, I have to meet this Wang Chong personally. At this moment, a strong curiosity about Wang Chong emerged in King Song's mind. Damn it! That good for nothing? At the same time, in the majestic Golden King Chi residence, furious roars pierced through the heavens alongside several golden pillars. At that instant, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the skies above the King Chi residence. Bizarrely, this lightning flash was only limited to the area in the hundreds of zhang above King Chi residence, and its surroundings weren't affected at all. Yao Guangyi, you have disappointed me. King Chi's disappointment and wrath were difficult to express through mere words. Before his departure, Yao Guangyi had reassured him time and time again that nothing would go wrong with the plan. Considering the reputation of Old Master Yao and Yao Guangyi's past results, King Chi suppressed his anger and overlooked the failure in the vast crane pavilion. Yet, to think that this would be the explanation Yao Guangyi have for him. Not only did Yao Guangyi fail to divide the Wang and Song clan, just like what he claimed he would, his ludicrous actions made King Chi one of the laughingstocks of the capital as well. Yao Guangyi was his subordinate and he had always regarded him as one of his limbs and trusted aides. Yao Guangyi's failure was as good as his own failure. Right now, the bunch in the capital were probably looking at him as a joke. King Chi was an arrogant person who couldn't accept failure. How could he tolerate such humiliation? Where is Yao Guangyi? Bring him over. King Chi's wrath could not be placated. The hundreds of people in the King Chi residence didn't dare to say a word before such a King Chi. Use my token to summon Yao Guangyi. I want to tear off his head. King Chi's furious bellow echoed throughout the entire residence. A moment later, a war steed left the residence toward the borders. Duke of Wei residence, Duke of Su residence, Duke of Lin residence, Duke of Zheng residence, King Han residence, King Chu residence, Prime Minister residence. The matter had caused a huge ripple among the upper echelons of the Great Tang and the nobles. However, no one knew that at this moment, as the person involved in the incident, Yao Guangyi's was feeling the impact of the incident much more deeply than anyone else. Impossible. That's impossible. By the border, Yao Guangyi was riding on the back of a mount. On his way back to the capital, he traversed across forest after forest, but his eyes were spiritless. He was a victor in the battle against the Hu. He defeated the Baiyue foreigners without many casualties. At their moments of death, Yao Guangyi could clearly see the incomprehension on their faces. He shouldn't have been the one to face them. It shouldn't have been like that. This wasn't what they promised on. Yao Guangyi could clearly see the expressions going through their minds through their eyes. If it was at any other time, Yao Guangyi would relish in their astonishment. Yet, as the victor, Yao Guangyi didn't feel the slightest bit of joy at all. That's because Yao Guangyi knew that, on another battlefield, in the battle against Wang Yan and the Wang clan, he had already lost utterly. Furthermore, Yao Guangyi usually prided himself on his flawless strategies. But this time, he didn't even know how he lost. This shouldn't be. How did I fail? Yao Guangyi muttered soullessly. Wave after wave of thoughts crashed into his mind, and they were all related to this incident. Before carrying out the plan, he had imagined the situation countless times, considered all possibilities and double-confirmed every single detail such that there would be no flaws whatsoever in his plans. No matter how incredible Wang Yan was, It was impossible for him to fathom that this skirmish by the borders was a ploy against him. Yao Guangyi remembered the report his scout had reported to him just before he had led his army toward Wang Yan's deployment site when he was half a day's journey away. Everything is normal. Wang Yan's army is still in the campsite and there aren't any bizarre movements. These scouts were experienced and they had been his faithful aides for decades. It was due to this news that he was affirmative that his plan would succeed. However, Yao Guangyi never expected that all that was waiting for him was an empty campground when he appeared at Wang Yan's deployment site. For some reason inconceivable to him, the person in question, Wang Yan, was looking at him from 50 li away. Yao Guangyi was dumbfounded then. Regardless of whether he was willing or not, when the Hu appeared before him, Yao Guangyi knew that he didn't have any other choice. He could only strike down the foreigners with his army, thus taking Wang Yan's place. In this fight he had lost completely. The plan to divide the Song and the Wang clan by creating the facade of the partnership of the Yao and Wang had failed utterly. It was hard for him to imagine the rage of King Qi. Who was the one who prepared this trap for him? Yao Guangyi was extremely agitated. Wang Yan. Impossible. If he had such capabilities, he wouldn't have persuaded King Qi to allow him to conduct this series of actions to dig up King Song's faction. Then who else could it be? Who was the one hiding in the back that saw through his plan, guided Wang Yan, and secretly laid this trap for him? At that instant, cold sweat drenched Yao Guangyi's back. After years of political fights in the royal court, this was the first time he felt such an intense unease. The moment he thought that there was such an intelligent strategist, who was in no way inferior to him, hiding in the shadows to help the Wang clan, Yao Guangyi felt fearful, as though there was a dagger behind his back at this very moment, making it difficult to eat or sleep in peace. Ha ha ha! Yao Guangyi, you have miscalculated. On the other hand, at this moment Wang Yan was feeling extremely delighted. Wang Yan's camp had slaughtered the livestock and prepared marvelous wines for a celebration. Wang Yan had passed down orders to reward the men. Even though the battle was fought by Yao Guangyi, Wang Yan was even more excited than Yao Guangyi himself. Everyone thought that as Wang Yan and Yao Guangyi were both officials of the royal court, Wang Yan was happy for Yao Guangyi. However, that wasn't what Wang Yan was thinking at all. Wang Yan did not have much of a talent for politics and governance. That's why Wang Yan was completely oblivious when Yao Guangyi schemed against him at the vast crane pavilion, as well as when he secretly left the capital to the borders to deal with him. However, this didn't mean that when the Hu crossed the border and his scouts detected that Yao Guangyi had disobeyed the military orders to move his army toward his deployment site, he was still oblivious to what he was trying to do. It was a military law for the Great Tang Empire's armies that they were to not retreat when faced with the invasion of a foreign tribe. They had to shoulder the responsibility to destroy and send back the invading enemies so as to guard the lands of the Great Tang. Those who disobeyed these orders would be sentenced to death. Regardless of whether he was willing or not, if Yao Guangyi's army were to appear here during the invasion of the Hu, Wang Yan would have to collaborate with Yao Guangyi to expel the invaders from the Great Tang's territories. He didn't have a grudge with Yao Guangyi, but the two of them weren't that close either. Yao Guangyi's actions were too intentional. If not for his third son Wang Chong's reminder and he had kept a lookout on the situation, he would have fallen for Yao Guangyi's ploy. The Yao and Wang clan puts aside their previous grudges to work together. The moment he thought of the possibility of such a rumor spreading within the capital and the uproar it would cause, Wang Yan couldn't help but sweat profusely. His third son Wang Chong had said that Yao Guangyi was intentionally keeping mum in the vast crane pavilion to harm him back then. But Wang Yan did not believe him. However, after this incident, he didn't hold the slightest bit of doubt toward his words. How did he know all these? Dressed in his battle armor, Wang Yan turned to look at the north. The agitation and excitement he had felt earlier vanished entirely, and what that replaced it was this single thought. There were simply too many doubts on Wang Yan's mind right now. His third son Wang Chong was only a 15-year-old child. He was rebellious and immoral. Not only did he rape an innocent lady, there were also many actions of his that left him disappointed. Wang Yan was unable to comprehend how Wang Chong, a mere 15-year-old boy, was able to know that Yao Guangyi was plotting against him, and even more so, the form that Yao Guangyi's ploy would take. Yao Guangyi was no ordinary person. Wang Yan was unable to comprehend how a small child like Wang Chong would know such a confidential military secret. If not for the military order for him to remain at the camp, Wang Yan truly wished to fly back to the capital to question Wang Chong. The letter I sent should have already reached the capital. At the top of the peak, Wang Yan's cape fluttered along with the wind. Gazing into the dark skies, his eyes flickered with uncertainty. A few days ago, he had sent a letter back to the capital, and by now, Wang Chong should have received it. The forging of the Wuxia steel into weapons was still ongoing. Just like before, Wang Chong returned back to his home right after overlooking the cold forging process. "Mother!" Wang Chong pushed the doors open and greeted his mother right after stepping into the residence. However, the next moment, he was taken aback by the sight before him. The usually empty main hall was currently filled with many different figures. None of these people was saying anything. Upon hearing Wang Chong's voice, all of them turned their gazes turned over. "Mother, big uncle, big aunt, uncle, cousin." Looking at those faces that would usually never appear here, Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, a sense of trepidation filled him. There were so many people, but it was too quiet. Other than during his grandfather's birthday, Wang Chong had never seen so many people gathered in the Wang family residence before, especially for his big uncle. He was seated at the main seat in the hall with an unreadable expression. Could it be that there are some developments with the report the old master of the Yao clan sent up to the emperor? Wang Chong's heart beat furiously. Just as he was feeling unnerved by such a massive formation before him, the sight before him suddenly darkened. He felt his body being embraced tightly by a figure who suddenly rushed toward him. "Chong-er!" Wang Chong wanted to struggle and retaliate, but upon hearing that gentle voice by his ear, his body relaxed. It was his mother. "Chong-er, your father had said everything in the letter. My child, you have finally grown up. Mother has wronged you in the past." Mother Wang Zhao Shuhua's tears trickled down her cheeks onto Wang Chong's chest. This was the first time Wang Chong seeing her getting so agitated since his reincarnation. Wang Chong was taken aback. Peering over his mother's shoulder, he saw a letter on the table not too far away, and on it was an extremely familiar handwriting. It's father's handwriting. Many thoughts flashed through Wang Chong's mind. He had roughly guessed something, and he stretched out his hands to hug his mother in return. "Mother!" Wang Chong had finally understood why so many people were gathered here today. After such a long time, has news finally arrived from father's side? From his mother's reaction, it seemed like his efforts weren't in vain. Father had finally decided to listen to his advice. A surge of warmth flowed into his heart. The intense crushing pressure that had been on his heart all this time was finally released. "Shuhua, let's put aside whatever you two mother and son have to say for later. We have very important things that we need to question Chong-er on. We have to clarify with him the matter regarding the Yao clan, Wang clan, and King Song." Suddenly, a powerful and authoritative voice sounded in his ear. Wang Chong lifted his head and saw that in the direct center of the main hall, in the most prestigious seat, a middle-aged man in his 40s was currently seated. His voice was stern and he exuded an intimidating pressure just by sitting here. He looked like an extremely rational person, someone who held an important and crucial official in the royal court. In truth, he really did. Big uncle. This person was Wang Chong's big uncle Wang Zhen. In his previous life, when Wang Chong had transcended into this world, he did not fear anything at all, except for this big uncle who he wasn't close with. There are some people in the world who induced fear in others when they lashed up angrily. At the same time, there are also some people whose natural disposition induced fear in others. The latter type of people seems as though they are incapable of laughing, and when they did, it looks sinister and scary, a sight that is even more fearsome than crying. His big uncle was such a person. In fact, it was highly possible that his cousin, Zhu Yan, had inherited those genes from his big uncle such that Wang Chong was fearful of her as well. Since big uncle had said so, then let's do it by that way. Madame Wang's released her grip with a slightly embarrassed expression. Clearly, she was also a little fearful of Wang Chong's big uncle. In this feudal era, the elder brother possessed a superior standing to that of the younger siblings, equivalent to one's father. As the eldest son, Wang Zhen possessed the greatest say within the Wang clan. This quality applied to Wang Chong's big aunt, uncle, little uncle, and the others as well. No one dared to refute big uncle's words. Everyone looked anxious, except for Wang Zhuyan, who remained calm in comparison. She mischievously blinked her eyes and secretly shot a thumbs up toward Wang Chong, encouraging him. Wang Chong, allow me to ask you a question. Your father had suddenly shifted his campground and army back 50 li, and avoided Yao Guangyi's ploy through such. Your father had claimed that it was your credit and that you were the one who asked him to do so. Is that true? Wang Zhen stared intently at Wang Chong as he asked him about the matter by the border. At that instant, the eyes of the entire Wang clan in the room was gathered on Wang Chong. Everyone was curious to see how would Wang Chong reply to this question. Even though Wang Chong's mother had already explained everything to them, the crowd seemed to be unable to believe that it was his doing. In fact, even his cousin, Wang Zhuyan, was slightly doubtful of it as well. After all, this was a large contrast from his previous actions. The matter he had done this time was simply too shocking. It's true, I asked him to do so. Wang Chong was silent for a moment before he lifted his head to meet everyone's gazes and nod his head seriously. These few simple words had caused a storm in the minds of its listeners. The eyes of the onlookers were complicated. Even though Wang Chong's father had explained the matter in another letter to them, the explanation simply sounded too inconceivable to them. It was still very shocking for them to hear Wang Chong admit to it. What is going on? Wang Chong's big uncle's face was still impassive as he asked coldly. Wang Chong, there's no need for you to be nervous. Your big uncle isn't interrogating you. By the side, Wang Chong's big aunt, Wang Rushuang, said, You might not know, but the matter by the border had caused a huge uproar in the capital. A few days ago, Yao Guangyi had led his army to your father's deployment site in an attempt to create the facade that the Wang clan and Yao clan had put aside their grudges to work together. It was fortunate that your father had listened to your words and retreated 50 li backward with his army in advance, thus catching Yao Guangyi and Yao clan by surprise and clearing him of all suspicions. Your father had explained all of these in the letter and stated that it was your credit that our Wang clan had managed to pull one over them in the battle against the Yao clan. Wang Chong, you have contributed greatly to our Wang clan. Wang Chong was only a 15-year-old kid, and there wasn't a single person in the Wang clan who did not fear Wang Rushuang's big brother. Wang General, knowing this fact, Wang Rushuang put on a cheerful smile in an attempt to alleviate the heavy atmosphere. Other than that, it was your grandfather's intention for all of us to be gathered here to comprehend more about the situation from you. You are a meritorious member of the Wang clan, so there's no need for you to be nervous. Hearing Big Ant's words, Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat and his attention was aroused. If he remembered correctly, his grandfather was currently stationed in the Four Quarters Embassy to support the emperor's policies at any moment. All along, he had never concerned himself with this kind of small matter. Apparently, the affair at the border had attracted his attention. Or rather, to be more specific, Wang Chong had attracted his attention. Among the current younger generation of the Wang clan, only Wang Chong's big brother and older cousin had attracted grandfather's attention. This was the first time that he had been acknowledged by grandfather. Wang Chong glanced at his mother, only to see her face flushed. It seemed like she had known of this matter in advance. This is great. Wang Chong clenched his fists in agitation. This was truly an unexpected reward. Even though grandfather was already advanced in age, he still possessed an unrivaled position in the Wang clan. All of the Wang clan's authority, standing, reputation, and influence came from grandfather's contribution in enthroning the emperor back then. In the royal court, grandfather still possessed an immense amount of influence. The reason why Wang Chong's big uncle and father had the positions they had now was also due to grandfather's halo. The reason why Yao clan's Yao Guangyi, Old Master Yao, and King Qi, a kin of the royal family, were so fearful of the Wang clan and tried their hardest to divide the Wang clan from King Song was because of this powerful grandfather. Even though he had secluded himself in the Four Quarters embassy and rarely showed him, he still induced fear in his opponents. However, what Wang Chong was concerned about wasn't this. "May I first read the letter on the table?" Wang Chong pointed to the white letter on the table. "Of course. This is a letter for you." The crowd in the room nodded their heads. Wang Chong grabbed the letter, took a look at it and noticed that the wax seal had been removed. It seemed like everyone else here had already read the contents within. Wang Chong wasn't surprised at all. King Song and King Qi were currently the two most prestigious kings in the Great Tang Empire. Countless powerful subordinates and generals were involved within their sphere of influence. This kind of internal war between factions was incomparably dangerous, and being involved in it was as though stepping on thin ice. The Wang clan wasn't an exception as well. A single misstep could mean the disappearance of all of their authority, fortune, and prestige overnight. Given that the matter with Yao Guangyi had far-reaching impacts, it would be weird if the members of the Wang clan were not concerned with this matter at all. Opening the letter and taking out the letter from within, a bunch of powerfully stroked words appeared before him. He could sense slight agitation from the handwriting. It is father's handwriting. In the letter, his father, Wang Yan, had explained the entire situation. Listening to Wang Chong's words, upon receiving news of Yao Guangyi's movements from his scout, he moved his campground back 50 li swiftly. There wasn't too much to the event, and what that formed a larger part of the letter was Wang Yan asking Wang Chong on the matter. Through his words, Wang Chong could sense his father's confusion. It was clear that there were too many aspects of the matter that he was unable to comprehend. How did Wang Chong know that Yao Guangyi was going to harm him? How did he know when would King Song send his envoy for him? How did he know that the Hu would invade and that Yao Guangyi would send his army to his deployment site, thus asking him to retreat 50 li in advance? If Wang Chong had put on an outstanding and wise appearance usually and is highly regarded by the clan, it wouldn't be surprising to Wang Yan to see him display such incredible foresight. Yet, Wang Chong's actions had always been a cause for worry for him. In fact, not too long ago there were even rumors that he raped a lady. This was something that even the profligate scions of the capital would never do. Try thinking about it. For such a Wang Chong to suddenly possess such foresight and wisdom, who wouldn't carry doubts on it? Wang Chong lifted his head to scan the faces in the main hall. Big uncle, cousin, big aunt, uncle, and everyone else were silent. Their expectant gazes were affixed on him. This was the first time Wang Chong was being acknowledged by so many people in the clan. Countless thoughts flashed across Wang Chong's mind, but he gradually calmed down, and slowly, his thoughts became clearer and clearer. In his previous life, until the complete downfall of the Wang clan, Wang Chong had never been acknowledged by the clan. In the eyes of the entire clan, Wang Chong was someone who could never accomplish great things. The Wang clan was no ordinary clan. In the entire Central Plains, there weren't many clans who could match up to the Wang clan's prestige and power. Wang Chong knew that if he could receive the approval of the clan, it would be extremely useful for his future plans. He would be entitled to the resources of the Wang clan, and that included that of his grandfather, big uncle, big aunt, little uncle, father, big brother, cousin, all of their strengths, and they added up to an immense amount. Wang Chong's strength as an individual was nothing compared to this. But before that, he had to win all of their trust first. He needed the approval of all of the members of the clan. Wang Chong's first plan of reversing the destiny of the Wang clan had succeeded. What he had to do next was to enter the core of the clan, and this was a good opportunity to do so. His grandfather, who was in seclusion in the Four Quarters embassy, rarely asked about the matters of the youngsters. Even though the ones who came this time and asked him on the matter were the others, Wang Chong knew that the one behind them was his powerful grandfather. The potential impacts of the incident at the border was simply too great. Father, unintentional escape from Yao Guangyi's ploy had saved the Wang clan from a potential calamity. Such performance was too shocking. This wasn't something someone of his age was capable of. Right now, his grandfather wasn't just the one. Probably everyone wanted to know how he was able to accomplish this impossible task. Wang Chong could easily come up with countless excuses such as those in the Ascension novels. An expert had told him about Yao clan's ploy, or that he had accidentally overheard of Yao clan's scheme to deal against the Wang clan, so he warned his father of it in advance. This kind of excuses would be accepted by them, but doing so was contrary to his primary aim. He wanted to enter the core of the family and become a highly regarded member of the clan. Thus, he had to showcase his full potential and talent so that he would leave an unerasable impression of him in their minds. Big Uncle. I wonder if you remember the incident of Ma Zhou using my name to rape a lady not too long ago? Wang Chong lifted his head and looked at Big Uncle Wang Zhen, who was seated in the center seat, and asked calmly. I remember, Wang Zhen said. His face was still impassive, but his heart skipped a beat and a bizarre feeling suddenly flashed across his mind. In the Wang clan, he was the eldest son. The old master had entrusted nearly all of his authority and influence to him, thus granting him an unparalleled position in the Wang clan. There was nearly no one who wasn't fearful of him in the Wang clan. Putting aside Wang Chong, Wang Zhuyan, and the other younger children of the clan, even Wang Rushuang, Zhao Shuhua, and the other elders of the clan were fearful of him. Wang Chong had met him a few times, and each time, he did not even dare to breathe loudly in his presence and cowered backward. But this time, this useless failure of the Wang clan actually dared to meet his gaze without the slightest bit of fear. This was something that even Wang Chong's elder brothers weren't capable of. This lad. Wang Zhen frowned. Truthfully, before he came here, he did not believe the words Wang Yan said at all. Given Wang Chong's capabilities, it was unimaginable to Wang Zhen that he could guide Wang Yan. There was a high possibility that Wang Yan wanted to help his son catch the attention of the old master, and thus, he used this incident as a platform for it. But looking at Wang Chong's calm and casual attitude, Wang Zhen was suddenly unsure. After being in the field of politics for decades, he was able to tell whether someone was truly collected or pretending to be calm. The Wang Chong before him was truly different from the Wang Chong in his memories. Wang Chong could discern from his big uncle's expression what he was thinking of. To be honest, Wang Chong did not really like this big uncle of his. He tended to put on airs and often used his authority to put down his family members. He always acted haughtily before Wang Chong's parents and looked down on them. Wang Chong did not like him, and Wang Chong also knew that he didn't like him, his parents, his big brother, his second brother, his little sister, his entire family. If possible, Wang Chong would rather have his big uncle never appear before him. However, putting aside his hateful attitude, the Wang family didn't really have any conflict with him, needless to say, grudge. Most of the time, everyone's interests were aligned with one another. Taking this incident for example, if Wang Chong's father ended up falling for Yao Guangyi's ploy, not only will Wang Yan lose his official position, Big Uncle and the entire Wang clan would be implicated by the matter as well. Thus, even though Big Uncle hated his parents, he still rushed here anxiously. At such a timing, he wouldn't rub salt into their wounds. Rather, he would try all means possible to help his father. This was the truth of the Wang clan. Even though there were a few dark dealings within, everyone came from the same bloodline and everyone was the descendant of the Wang clan. They were operating on the same boat, and if something happened, everyone would be affected. Thus, regardless of whether Wang Chong liked this big uncle of his or not, as long as Wang Chong wanted to change the destiny of the Wang clan, as well as the destiny of the Central Plains, Wang Chong needed to persuade his big uncle and receive his assistance. I've been acquainted with Ma Zhou for quite a period of time, and while I was hanging out with him, I treated him as a soulmate, treating him with my utmost sincerity. However, I never thought that he would betray me. He raped a lady under broad daylight and claimed that I was the one who ordered him to bring that lady to me. Eventually, I found out that he was under Yao Feng's commands and he intentionally got close to me to do me in. Wang Chong said with an indignant expression. At the same time, his mind was flying about the place, thinking of the words he should say. This was the first time I opened my heart to make some friends, and I didn't expect that it would end like that. To think that Ma Zhou was commanded by Yao clan Gongzi Yao Feng to do such a thing. I didn't know that there was such a backstory. If so, it's no wonder that you would head to the vast crane pavilion to cause a ruckus. Big Aunt Wang Rushuang nodded her head. She was a female, and after marrying out, she could only be considered as half a member of the Wang clan. As such, she didn't really bother herself much with the affairs of the clan. Wang Chong and Yao Feng's conflict had been reported to the emperor, so it was natural she knew it, but she wasn't aware that there was such a background to the matter. "What's your main point?" Big Uncle Wang Zhen said indifferently. He already knew all of these earlier on, and that was including the background of Ma Zhou. He had investigated them properly after the matter happened, and if not for him blocking the matter, Wang Chong would have been arrested and locked in jail for the crime of raping a female civilian. However, he didn't say all of these. Wang Zhen wasn't bothered about whether Wang Chong was a victim of the matter or not. It didn't matter to him whether Yao Feng was the one who intended to inflict harm on Wang Chong first or not. He was only bothered that the uproar Wang Chong caused in the vast crane pavilion and his beating up of Yao Feng had been reported by the Yao clan's old master to the emperor. In this conflict, the interests of the Wang clan had been adversely impacted. This was what he was concerned with. The ending was more important than the process. This was also the reason why he angrily stomped to the Wang family right after the meeting at the royal court ended. Whether Wang Chong was framed or not was not even of importance. Sitting by the side, Madame Wang was listening into the matter with an embarrassed look. Her mouth moved, but she didn't feel like it was her place to say anything at this point. It was after this matter that I woke up and realized that I had committed a lot of mistakes in the past. Wang Chong could discern the thoughts of Wang Zhen, but he paid it no heed and continued on with his story. Wang Zhuyan and Wang Rushuang nodded their heads. They could sense Wang Chong's changes, but they didn't know the reason behind the change before this. Wang Chong's words were acceptable by them. Even though Wang Chong had suffered a setback in the hands of Ma Zhou, he was able to wake up before it was too late. This was something that for the Wang clan to be delighted about. Taking this into sight, Wang Chong was satisfied with the impact of his words and continued on. Yao Feng had treated me like this, and naturally, I was unsatisfied ending the matter just like this. Thus, I intentionally got close to him with the intention to deal with him so as to vent the hatred within. Just that, I didn't expect that I would unintentionally overhear the news that Yao Guangyi's invitation to my father for a gathering at the vast crane pavilion was actually a ploy to divide father from King Song. In the main hall, Wang Chong's big uncle Wang Zhen, big aunt Wang Rushuang, uncle Li Lin, and cousin Wang Zhuyan's bodies trembled. Even astonishment was reflected on Wang Chong's mother's face. Clearly, this was the first time they were hearing of the truth behind Wang Chong's matter. Yao Feng had sent Ma Zhou to deal with Wang Chong, and Wang Chong was furious at him for that. So he ran over to look for Yao Feng to question him. But while doing so, he unintentionally overheard the shocking secret of the Yao clan wanting to deal with the Wang clan. This was a rational explanation that everyone here could accept. If the Yao clan had fallen because of this, it was truly the decree of fate. Yao Guangyi's loss wasn't really that surprising anymore. Taking their reactions into sight, Wang Chong nodded his head with satisfaction within. This was the excuse that he had squeezed his brain juice out to come up with. If he had said that he had heard the news from some other scion that he hanged out with, Big Uncle would only think that it was luck on his part and that it had nothing to do with his own abilities. However, if he had headed over to exact vengeance on Yao Feng and overheard the Yao clan's plan, this made the entire event different. At the very least, this was the result of diligence on his part rather than sheer luck. Yao Guangyi is a cunning person. It was impossible for him to have any good intention at heart inviting father for a gathering. I knew that I had to mess up their meeting no matter what, but the vast crane pavilion was tightly guarded by the experts of the Yao residence. It was nearly impossible for outsiders to get in. Thus, considering that it was a nearly impossible task for me to barge in, I decided to work on Ma Zhou instead. Then Wang Chong recounted what that had happened between him and Ma Zhou after that. Everyone knew of the matter with Ma Zhou, so there was no need for him to lie on that aspect. That makes sense. For you to be able to think of making use of that Ma Zhou, seems like you have some wits. Big Uncle Wang Zhen nodded his head and offered a rare praise to Wang Chong. Bizarre expressions appeared on the faces of Wang Chong's big aunt, uncle, and cousin. On the other hand, Wang Chong's mother was delighted. Everyone knew that Big Uncle was an austere man who rarely smiled, needless to say, compliment others. Having married into the Wang clan for so many years, this was the first time Madame Wang was hearing him compliment her own son. Clearly, Wang Chong's actions in the vast crane pavilion had received his approval. Such a weird feeling. Wang Chong saw his cousin Wang Zhuyan winking at him. He couldn't help but find this situation amazing. From a long time ago, he and his big uncle shared a mutual dislike for one another, and listening to the compliments of someone you dislike was a bizarre feeling. Regardless, blood is thicker than water. They came from the same bloodline, and Wang Chong was still delighted to receive the approval of an elder. However, before Wang Chong could relish in the sensation, Big Uncle's authoritative voice sounded once more. I won't ask you about the matter in the vast crane pavilion then. Since you were able to overhear about the matter in the vast crane pavilion from Yaofeng, I reckon that it should have been the same for the matter of King Song summoning your father. However, what about the incident by the borders? Did you overhear that as well? I have known Yao Guangyi for many years, and I have crossed blows with him in the royal court multiple times. I understand his means and personality very well. Vast Crane Pavilion and King Song are both in the capital, and Yao Feng often walk to and fro the Vast Crane Pavilion, so it wasn't really bizarre for you to happen to overhear a few things from him. However, the matter at the border was completely different. The fewer the people who know of the matter, the more likely it would succeed. Given Yao Guangyi's personality, he might not have even told his closest aide about the plan, needless to say, his son. So how could you have possibly known that he would use such a method to set your father up and have him retreat 50 li in advance? Yao Guangyi wasn't any ordinary man. Wang Zhen knew this fact better than anyone else, even more so than Wang Chong. His plans were often crafted very carefully and secretly, and he did all preparations to prevent anything from going awry. If Wang Chong had heard of the matter of the vast crane pavilion from Yao Feng, that was still understandable. However, it was definitely impossible for Wang Chong to overhear the fact that Yao Guangyi intended to head to the border to set Wang Yan up. Being a powerful official in the royal court, Wang Zhen had many eyes and ears in the capital, so rarely could news hide from his notice. However, he had not heard of a single word on this matter. Similarly, the old acquaintances and students of the old master in the military hadn't heard anything as well. Where could Wang Chong hear of news that even the two of them didn't know of? Here it comes. A strike of lightning flashed across Wang Chong's head. This was the climax of the show today. Big uncle, big aunt, uncle, father, and the others, they may not know exactly what Yao Guangyi would do, but they understood his personality. Even big uncle, who was well informed of the affairs in the capital, did not know that Yao Guangyi was going to deal with Wang Chong's father by the borders. Yet an useless failure of the Wang clan was able to know of it in advance. This was probably the main issue that left many people, including Wang Chong's grandfather, perplexed. Regardless of whether it was his father who was still by the borders, his grandfather who was in the Four Quarters Embassy, or the big uncle before him, this was probably the main issue that they were interested in. Whether he would be able to convince them, change their impression of him, and become an highly regarded member of the clan would depend on this. I didn't hear of this matter. I guessed it, Wang Chong said. Guessed? Other than Wang Chong's mother, everyone else was flabbergasted. Big Uncle Wang Zhen's thick eyebrows twitched violently, as though this was the first time he was meeting the true self of the failure of the Wang clan. How did you guess it? Big Uncle Wang Zhen asked. This answer that Wang Chong just provided was even more shocking than if he had said that he had overheard it from Yao Feng. Yao Guangyi was always thorough in the things he did. Even though his action of scheming against father seemed like a grudge between the Wang clan and the Yao clan, it was, in fact, a political struggle between King Song and King Qi. This was a huge affair with far-reaching implications. The matter in the vast crane pavilion had been foiled by me and my little sister, but Yao Guangyi wasn't the type of person to give up that easily. That would be underestimating his means. Back then, I was sure that he would have some other plans. Since his plan in the capital had failed, it was unlikely that he would pull anything here anymore. Thus, the best way for him to deal with my father was outside the capital, and of which, the only place where Yao Guangyi could pull his schemes at was at my father's deployment site. I have studied the map carefully, and I realized that Yao Guangyi's deployment site and my father's deployment site weren't too far away from one another. Thus, I concluded that it was the best place, as well as the most probable one, for Yao Guangyi to launch his moves. The moment Wang Chong's finished his sentence, the entire main hall plunged into complete silence. If a pin were to drop now, the sound would surely be deafening. Everyone looked at Wang Chong in astonishment, and for a long moment, they couldn't find a word to say. Wang Chong's words were logical. If it were Wang Chong's elder brothers or some other intelligent young talent who said such words, the crowd wouldn't be surprised at all. But Wang Chong, this was too shocking. At this moment, even Wang Chong's big uncle forgot to speak. Good child, you have truly grown mature. Wang Chong's mother was surprised and delighted. She was so agitated that she had to keep on wiping away the tears that were streaming down her face. Without even looking, she could tell that her son's performance had won the approval of all members of the Wang clan. She had 4 children, 3 sons and a daughter, and of which she worried the most for her youngest son. Which mother doesn't wish for their own son to become accomplished? Isn't this what all mothers dream of? At this very moment, her child had finally grown up and matured. This was something she felt relieved and delighted over. After that, Big Uncle Wang Zhen asked. His voice was no longer as stern as before. Clearly, Wang Chong's words had moved him, and the impression of the useless Wang Chong in his mind had changed completely. I've studied the lands by the borders, and there weren't too few things that Yao Guangyi could manipulate to his advantage. For one, my father could simply ignore his moves, and that would render his helpless. At the same time, it was nearly impossible for Yao Guangyi to make a move on his campsite as well. Thus, the most probable possibility was through the who. Wang Chong said. His gaze was bright and calm, and as he spoke, he exuded the aura of a sage. Seeing this sight, those who were familiar with him were astonished. They had watched Wang Chong as he grew up, and they had never seen such a quality on him. This child has finally grown up, Big Aunt Wang Ru Shuang thought as she nodded her head in approval within. She was delighted with his changes. Previously, when she heard that Wang Chong had caused a huge trouble in the vast crane pavilion, she was extremely infuriated. She felt that this child was too immature and would never grow up. But now, she did not dare to harbor such thoughts anymore. They said that even the most mischievous and unworthy boys would awaken one day. Looks like Chong-er had finally woken up. Big Aunt was overjoyed. Even though she had married into another family, and she could only be considered as half a Wang clan member, she and her husband shared a fate with the Wang clan. The youngest and most unworthy son of the Wang clan had suddenly awoken, and furthermore, he showed outstanding talents. This was something for the Wang clan to celebrate over. I have analyzed the matter carefully, and this was the most possible tactic Yao Guangyi would use. If I guessed wrongly, I won't talk about that. But if I guessed correctly, Yao Guangyi would surely leave the capital soon to head for the borders. And facts had proven that my conjecture is right. At this moment, he should have passed their test. Looking at Big Uncle's expression, it seemed like he was satisfied with the results of this interrogation. This way, he would be able to explain the situation to grandfather as well. However, Wang Chong knew that this level of contribution wasn't sufficient to receive the approval of all members of the clan. In fact, it wasn't even enough for him to enter the core of the clan. At the very most, he had only reversed the impression Big Uncle, Big Aunt, Uncle, Father, and the rest had of him. If he wanted them to respect his opinion, he still needed to display his talent openly and show more of his capabilities. Big Uncle, the incident by the border has already ended. Even though Yao Guangyi had suffered 2 consecutive defeats, the Yao clan's foundations are far from being rattled. If I'm not wrong, Yao clan's old master Yao would soon head to grandfather to request for a truce. Wang Chong said. What? Old Master Yao would request for a truce with our old master? How is that possible? Upon hearing Wang Chong's words, shock appeared on everyone's faces. Wang Chong, you must be joking. Old Master Yao is an old wily fox, and given his standing and identity, how could he possibly request for a truce with your grandfather? Isn't that admitting defeat before grandfather? He would never do such a thing. Wang Chong's cousin, Wang Zhuyen, was the first to question his words. after which the eyes in the entire room shot toward Wang Chong. They were unable to comprehend why he was so sure that old Master Yao would request for a truce. It was true that the Yao clan had been made a laughingstock, but this didn't hinder their authority and influence. At the very most, they just failed in an operation to do the Wang clan in. Yet Wang Chong claimed that the old retired wily fox of the Yao clan, a figure whose stomp would tremor the entire capital, would request a truce with their own old master. This was something inconceivable to them. However, Wang Chong's grim expression showed how serious he was on this matter. Thus, everyone waited quietly for his explanation. "Hey, cousin, you didn't think sufficiently deep into the matter. If we just consider the fact that the Yao clan had lost to the Wang clan in this battle, it wouldn't count as anything much, and old Master Yao wouldn't need to come out personally to settle the matter. However, did you all forget? Old Master Yao had recently reported our Wang clan up to the emperor." Wang Chong sneered coldly. "Wang." It was as though a strike of lightning had flashed across the main hall and everyone's eyes lit up. They suddenly understood the meaning behind Wang Chong's words. Right now, not only did the Yao clan need to resolve the displeasure of the Wang clan, they had to settle the displeasure of His Majesty. Everyone could tell what the Yao clan was up to after what Yao Guangyi did by the border. Given His Majesty's wisdom, did you all think that he wouldn't be able to tell what was going on? At this moment, the old wily fox Yao had to come out regardless of whether he was willing to or not. Yao Guangyi's standing had yet to reach that kind of level, so the old wily fox had no choice. Humph, they truly did themselves in this done. That old wily fox was looking for it. Wang Chong sneered coldly. Wang Chong wasn't speaking nonsense. Right after he heard that Yao Guangyi's ploy had failed, he had been thinking about this matter. Currently, Yao Guangyi wasn't capable of placating the wrath of the emperor. In the entire Yao clan, only old Master Yao wielded such capability. Unless the Yao clan decided to discard their honor and riches, otherwise old Master Yao had no choice on the matter. On this matter, he paying a visit to grandfather and requesting for a truce was the best solution. Even though the Yao clan's old master might not utter a single word of apology, he had little choice but to pay a visit to Wang Chong's grandfather at the Four Quarters Embassy. He also had to enter the royal palace to admit his faults and beg for forgiveness with the emperor. This was something he had no choice but to do. If I'm not wrong, the Yao clan's old master would probably start making a move within these 2 days. Wang Chong smirked. Initially, everyone thought that Wang Chong was spouting nonsense and they were unmoved by their words. However, as they listened on, their eyes slowly brightened and eventually, they became agitated. "Chong, I realize that you have really changed." Big Aunt Wang Rushuang scanned Wang Chong from top to bottom with a curious gaze, as though this was the first time she was meeting with the real Wang Chong. "It was impossible for you to say such words in the past. Looks like the incident with Ma Zhou was a blessing in disguise. At the very least, you have matured from it." He, Rushuang, no matter what, Chong is from the old master's bloodline. Even though he might have his moments of folly, there is no way he could be lacking. I think that the current him is the true him. Perhaps in the past, he might have just placed his thoughts elsewhere. Wang Chong's uncle, Li Lin, was a bearded tough man. Even when seated, his back was entirely upright. With a single look, it was clear that he was from the military. In reality, his uncle Li Lin was truly a military man. However, different from Wang Chong's father, Wang Yan, he was a member of the imperial army. He was an extremely masculine man and perhaps due to his job scope, he tended to be reticent and spoke few words. Different from Big Aunt and Big Uncle, Uncle Li Lin did not hold any bias against Wang Chong. As the saying goes, it is impossible for a great man to bore a meek son. In his perspective, the current Wang Chong was the true Wang Chong. Uncle, you shouldn't praise him too much. He'll get complacent. Even though Madame Wang said so, she was actually overjoyed. No one disliked their own children being praised. Wang Chong's performance this time had impressed everyone, such that even his big uncle who didn't like him didn't say anything about it. He had truly made his mother proud today. Father, if it is truly as little brother Chong had said, grandfather would definitely be overjoyed. Wang Zhuyen chuckled behind her hands. Wang Chong's grandfather was a nemesis of the Yao clan's old master, and from very long ago, they had been fighting against one another. Neither side was willing to submit to the other. If the Yao clan's old master went over to grandfather to apologize for his son and request for a truce, grandfather would surely be over the moon. Wang Chong's big uncle, Wang Zhen, sat there quietly, neither agreeing or disagreeing to Wang Zhuyan's words. Even though Wang Chong's words were only speculation on his part, Wang Zhen knew that there was a high possibility that things would unfold as Wang Chong said. Yao Guangyi had suffered a setback at the border due to Wang Yan, and the first thing he thought of was to come to the Wang family to ask about the matter. If not for Wang Chong bringing it up, he would have totally forgotten about the issue with Old Master Yao. No wonder Old Master would send me here. Most probably, he already knew of the happenings at the Yao clan. Suddenly, everything was clear in Wang Zhen's mind. He glanced at Wang Chong once more, but there were many complicated feelings in his mind. His third brother, Wang Yan, had a total of 3 sons and 1 daughter. Putting aside the 2 elder brothers, now even the most useless third son was proving to be a useful asset. This would destabilize his position and authority as the eldest son of the Wang clan. The authority and influence Old Master had passed down to him would definitely start to spread thin, and to him this wasn't something good. But on the other hand, the Wang clan was reliant on one another for survival. It wasn't a good thing for the other party if either he or Wang Yan were to fall. This time, if not for Wang Chong's sudden display of talent in foreseeing the Yao Guangyi's ploy, the Wang clan might be facing a disastrous catastrophe at this very moment. As a whole, if more talents were to appear in the Wang clan, the more likely it was for the Wang clan to flourish. On this aspect, it was a good thing to him as well. For a moment, Wang Zhen was conflicted. Big uncle. Even though the Yao clan had lost this time and Old Master Yao was going to request for a truce with grandfather, we mustn't let down our guard. Wang Chong was clear at reading faces, and he knew what his big uncle Wang Zhen was thinking. If in his previous life, Wang Chong would definitely shirk off his responsibility and stay out of this affair if he saw his big uncle behaving like this. But in this life, Wang Chong understood that a catastrophe was about to befall Great Tang. Before this catastrophe, the Wang clan must not be embroiled in any internal fights and weaken itself. Wang Chong needed to unite all possible strength that he could tap into, and this included his big uncle. For this motive, just displaying his capability wasn't sufficient. He had to change his big uncle's attitude toward him and have him feel goodwill toward him. At the very least, his big uncle shouldn't be hostile toward him. Even though the Yao clan has lost this time, they didn't lose willingly. I think that they might pull some strings privately while requesting for a truce with us. With His Majesty's attention on the matter, they wouldn't be able to lay their hands on my father, big uncle, uncle, and little uncle. However, it would be hard to say the same for the others in the clan. I heard that big uncle is planning to move cousin's official position. Wang Chong shot a meaningful gaze to big uncle Wang General Wang. Wang Zhen had been seated on the main seat of the hall calmly all along. But upon hearing Wang Chong's words, his entire body jolted as though it had been electrified. He abruptly sat upward and stared at Wang Chong with a look of disbelief. He had been involved in politics for decades, and so, he was able to grasp Wang Chong's words at once. At that instant, cold sweat drenched his entire back. Everyone had their own selfish motives. In order to counteract Wang Yan's influence in the military, he had secretly placed his eldest sons, Wang Li, name on the royal court's promotion list. He hoped to use Old Master and his own influence to send his eldest son Wang Li to a higher position. He hadn't alarmed anyone of this matter, but privately, he already had the Bureau of Military Personnel handle it. If the Yao clan were to make a move on this matter, that would be disastrous. Thinking of it, Wang Zhen could no longer remain seated.